Hello? Great.
Which I'm gonna try and figure out.
It's our first time.
My fault.
All right. Esteemed ladies and gentlemen, are we ready to roll?
Santa.
All right. It is 7:11 p.m. and I am calling to order the Hamilton Select Board meeting of Monday, May 6th, 2024. We have an action-packed agenda, but before we get started, I'm just going to talk through some board and committee openings. So everyone, there's so many folks here online and in person who I know are dying to get involved. So the Concom is looking for two folks or two openings. Oh,
You don't have anybody on, you don't have to do roll call
There's
live.
nobody
There's
live.
nobody on,
there's nobody.
I don't think there's anybody on Zoom, so it's just you.
But we need to do an
Do you want to do it anyway?
attendance anyhow, right?
So we're calling to order with attendance from Rosie Kennedy, Bill Wilson, and Caroline Beaulieu. All present.
All present.
All present.
All present.
And if somebody does join us, I know we have some members who might be joining by phone, just holler at us when you arrive. All right, Council on Aging has two associate openings. The FinCom has one associate opening. The Historic District Commission has two openings for 3-year terms and two openings for 2-year terms. One must be a resident of the Historic District and one must be a resident realtor. The Human Rights Commission has one opening and the Planning Board has one associate opening. And the Zoning Board of Appeals has one associate opening. So if you're looking for a way to get involved. All right, we will begin with public comment. And just a reminder, public comment is 3 minutes on topics that are not on the agenda. So if you're here to comment on topics that are on the agenda, we will certainly open for public comment when we get to those agenda items. But if anybody is here or online that has any public comment, please come up to the podium or raise your hand and we'll call on you. Yep. Come on up, name, street.
Is this okay? Ooh.
Perfect.
Deb Safford, 46 Maple Street. Hello, and thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I was surprised and very concerned to learn at April's town meeting that a possible $150 million school consolidation project was coming next year to be voted on, and that the sale of Winthrop for about $20 million would help to offset this cost. A 30-year resident, the idea of not having an elementary school near Patton Park and the community house was really shocking. I thought, how did I miss that? As I started to dig into it, I wondered how it was possible that this was announced prior to the school building committee recommending their proposal. I did watch the committee meeting discussing the options 2 weeks ago and was dismayed to hear that because the town had not renewed the 50-year lease, the Winthrop renovation option was taken off the table, thus fulfilling the town meeting heads up. It all feels a bit conspired. With Winthrop renovations taken off the table, the committee de facto vote was for consolidation. So this decision to not renew the lease is a critical piece to understand and shows a bias toward a specific outcome. It also opens up the possibilities for a fundamental transformation of our town, all done without the vote of the residents. It reminds me of a parenting strategy I was taught when dealing with free-spirited kids not wanting to go to bed. I would say, do you want to walk upstairs or shall I carry you? They felt empowered by the choice, but the outcome is the same. They were going to go upstairs. This analogy is how I feel today as a resident. Do you want a consolidated elementary school or do you want Winthrop and Cutler combined? Or do you just not care about the children? This is a false choice because the third option of renovating the existing school is off the table. If the decision makers were unbiased and sought the will of the residents, the lease could have been for 50 years with an option to end early if the residents voted for a consolidated school. The MBTA Rule 3A breathing down our backs is perhaps pushing this decision when residents understand that the consolidation is necessary so Winthrop can be developed into 700 plus units of multifamily housing, which isn't affordable housing, and voluntarily gives the state control over that zoning. When they see that the town government is not fighting this state-enforced fundamental transformation of our town, think about it, there's going to be pushback. Preserving the Winthrop location would have actually been a buffer for this. So I'd really appreciate it if someone could help address or point me to where the information is found. What did the school committee ask for? Who and which committees made this decision to change the lease from 50 years to 5 years? When was this decided? What criteria was used to decide to change this lease? And why, given such a monumental decision, was this done without a town vote or public comment period? And finally, I'll just say that to reach residents of all ages and technical abilities, communications on these significant issues have got to be more proactive. We cannot assume that everyone checks the town website every day, every week, or that they're on Facebook. With no local paper, more visible, accessible communication strategies are essential if we as a town need to move forward through these critical stages. And I hope that someone will help me answer those 5 questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good evening. Ellen Wright for Asbury Ave. I moved here a little over 3 years ago. I'm a graduating member of the class of '96, and it's amazing to be back. I will tell you, I lived in Lowell for 15 years, so to be able to move to this amazing town is such an honor, and I'm so grateful every day that I wake up about the beauty that's around me, the people here, everyone takes care of each other. It's so amazing. It's so, so amazing. I was the one who went this week to the Salem Evening News, and I did an interview about 3A and how this will devastate Hamilton Wenham. It will cripple us. And I've worked so hard to come up and out of Lowell, to have the privilege to live here. I can't see this beautiful town go up in flames. The thought of it is just devastating to me. It's devastating. 3A is so, so dangerous on so many different levels. And it's so easy to get caught up in the day-to-day bustle and the Cutler talk and the Winthrop and this and that, and we've got jobs. But this is what happens when voters are asleep at the wheel. This came in 2021, and nobody even saw it coming. Nobody. I have an office in Tewksbury, and a satellite in Danvers. I'm an attorney. And Tewksbury is going bananas right now over this. Crazy, crazy. I just encourage everyone to think this through. 731 units. All right, if you assume that's 2 people per household, that's a 10% increase in our population. There are no guidelines on how many bedrooms can be stuffed in there. Zero, none. Occupancy, family friendly. Let's jam them in. The more, the merrier. And I find it very, I shudder to use the word suspicious, because I haven't been here that long. I don't even really know anything about the town politics here. All I know is I heard about 3A coming down the pike, and then I got concerned. I don't know any of the selectmen. I've started to get to know some of the amazing neighbors. I live in Asbury Grove, but I meet some amazing people through this issue coming up. But it's suspicious to me that this whole Winthrop Cutler issue is surfacing right around the time of 3A. Right, it's just the timing is alarming. The MBTA, it all smells like a scam. Soup to nuts. This is a bailout for the MBTA. Let's be honest, since COVID, ridership is down. 20% of the commercial space in Boston is not occupied. People are working from home. I'm an attorney, people still go to court from home. That hasn't even gone away. Give me a break. This is not about affordable housing. There is nothing in 3A that talks anything about affordable housing. Not a word. It's a scam. The only one who's going to profit off this is the developers, and we are going to suffer. I dabble in a little bit of bankruptcy. I will tell you, this is a recipe for a Chapter 9. Goodbye septic, hello sewer, open your wallets for that. Fire, police, crime. Every now and then, I don't lock my doors. I used to in Lowell. Now I've gotten a little lackadaisical because Hamilton Wenham is so nice and friendly and cozy and nothing really goes on here. Sometimes I leave without locking my doors. I'm gonna have to start doing that again, lickety-split. I'm aghast that this is even a question in this town. It shouldn't even be a question. And I look at what happened in Milton, and again, I don't know any of the selectmen. I think I met one hello in passing at some committee meeting last week, but I'll tell you, what happened in Milton could happen here. It's a cautionary tale for any politicians. What did Milton do? They cleaned house. The selectmen let it go through? Okay. The whole citizenry gathered together and tossed him out. Goodbye. Could it happen here? Probably. I don't see it too much of a difference. Does anybody here? Yeah. You know, it's funny. I did this interview and various people.
Sorry, I would just respectfully ask, it's now been 5 minutes. If
All
you
right.
could wrap it up. Thank you.
Thanks all.
Good evening. I'm Lou Terranova, 54 Woodland Mead. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm going to continue a recurring theme tonight, and the topic is really MBTA 3A. As you know, it's been in the news. We also know, and I don't know many of you people out there are aware, that the vote on MBTA 3A is not going to be made by you. It's going to be made by them and the planning board, which is a violation of home rule. Are you aware of that? Have you read the law?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
How many pages are in the law?
Specifically 3A?
Yep.
1/2.
Yeah, not much.
40 pages. It came out of the legislature with 3. Once we're under 3A, as mentioned earlier, we're never going to meet our affordable housing number, because with this wave of 731 new units, we're going to be chasing our tails for years. We will never be able to satisfy our 10%. It'll be a windfall for the developers, many of whom are from this town, and many of whom have already got licking their chops over property next to the Winthrop site. 3 beautiful homes. Some of the owners are here. Okay? A developer could go in, knock those beautiful homes down, and boom, before you know it, 90 units by law. When you vote for 3A, you lose control. You think you can write up the compliance to maintain control. It is specifically written in the law. You will lose control. This town will lose control of its land. It's also become very apparent that developing Winthrop has been your long-range goal all along, using the MSBA process as a smokescreen. We also understand that this has been the plan for at least 2 years. We know it. This has been the game, right? We understand. We don't like it. What you need to do is you need to give this to the people to decide. If this board and the planning board go forward with their plan to file directly with the state, this will be a disaster, a train wreck for the town. Your compliance is not mandatory. If you read the law, you will note that the only thing that's at risk is grant money, which allows you $28,000 for the town of Hamilton. There's a lot of misinformation and deceptive advertising being spread by people in town who stand to gain from this. Developers, housing advocates. The SJC is going to rule on the constitutionality of this law in the fall. My advice to you, and I ask, and many of the folks out there are asking, that you slow down, you take your time, you be transparent, move slowly. And the citizens have to be the decision makers, not this board, not the planning board. It's the citizens by the Constitution of Massachusetts. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I did just want to make a quick response. And I think we should plan to follow up directly. I think, Deb, you had some very specific questions, and there are certain things we can. I'm flattered that y'all think we can be so organized as to be conspiratorial. I will say that. But I do want to say that what I have learned in the last 2 weeks through the communications that I've received from folks is that there seems to be a binary expectation that when 3A came in, there's a group of folks that said you should have immediately rejected it. And I will agree that that was never the intent. We never thought we'll reject it out of hand and we will not go through the process. Because there are also equal advocates on the other side who believe believe in 3A and want to see this come to our town. And so the consultant that we just hired was hired to go through this process. And we have gone so slowly as to actually be behind in 3A. We have not put forth a decision in a timely manner. And part of what that consultant will do, we'll see, to your point, the grant money will or will not be something that will affect the town, and that'll be one of our considerations. I cannot speak for the entire board. I can speak for myself. There is not a pro 3A board attitude. There is we need to identify what this would mean and what the outcomes would be, and if there is an acceptable way to do 3A. And I recognize fully that there is a group of folks that say there is no acceptable way to do 3A. The same way there's a group at 133 that says there's no acceptable way to build there. And there's a group at Gordon Conwell that says there's no acceptable way to build here. I empathize and acknowledge with that perspective. But the job of this board is not to go with the binary poll. It is to try to understand what the options are. And those options may be turned down in the end. But I would like to assure you that it is not a pro 3A action that you're seeing. It is an effort to try to figure out if there is an acceptable compromise, to which the answer may be no.
Lou, please, may I? Please?
Absolutely. Continue.
My name is Lisa Terranova, 54 Woodland Mead. I'm going to ask 3 things of this board tonight. The first thing is to educate yourselves. Because if you truly understood the 3A rule, you would not have the attitude you have tonight, Caroline. It would be impossible. There is no middle of the road. This is the destruction of the state. This 3A is unconstitutional. It takes away home rule that became part of the Constitution in 1966. It affects 178 communities on the eastern side of the state. Western Mass is excluded, the Cape and Islands are excluded, Springfield is excluded. It is discriminatory. The state seeks and will put in 1 million new housing units in 178 cities and towns. There is no way that we can afford this. These are the taxpayers. We have turf fields we are paying for. You want a 150 million new school coming in. How in God's name are we going to pay for that? We do not have the infrastructure, as Attorney Wright said. We do not have the water. I remember 30 years ago, a fire in Ipswich on a Friday night. A father came home, and he had to watch his wife and 2 young daughters burned to death in front of him. The entire fire department was there, and there was no water. 30 years ago. How are we going to protect you put those units in? How do we protect those people? We can't even protect ourselves. I am begging you, educate yourselves, because once you do, you won't throw us under the bus. You should have been the ones sounding the alarm, saying to the entire populace, this is wrong. And anyone who tells you anything else, do not believe them. You need to educate yourselves. We had a meeting last Thursday with the people, the attorneys bringing the lawsuit for Rockport, to which Hamilton and Wenham have enjoined themselves. You need to get educated. Number 2, I am requesting that this board file an amicus brief with the court to add to the citizens' lawsuit. As Attorney Wright has said, many towns in their town meeting have voted down 3A. And as Milton has done, others are following suit. They're kicking out the select boards who refuse to listen to we the people. There is no harm in waiting until the fall when this lawsuit is to be adjudicated. There is no harm. But let me tell you, you file your 3A plan with the state that's supposed to come out of our planning board, there is no going back. We will be bankrupt. The state is counting on it. It is counting on all of our cities and towns to go bankrupt. We go into receivership. They will own our capital. They will own our property. They will own everything. I have never witnessed in my entire life, born and raised and lived here my entire life, such overreach of the state. Number 3, we are our direct democracy. Since the founding of Hamilton, we have existed as a direct democracy. We go to town meeting and we vote. That means each and every one of us is our own legislator. That's right. You have no right to take that vote away from us. In fact, you have an obligation to make sure we get that right to vote. Special town meeting in the fall. If you don't put it on the warrant, we will. And finally, in closing, you all swore an oath to sit behind this table. It is your legal and fiduciary duty to protect the welfare of each and every resident in this town. If you are not willing to fulfill your sworn oath, I respectfully ask that you stand down and allow those who will to serve.
Thank you. Pardon? Yeah, go ahead.
All right, so this is a little out of order, but with the permission of the chair, I'm just going to address a couple of things that you said there at the end. There is no intention to file a plan with the state without going through town meeting. And there's
There
no-
never was a plan. That was never the plan.
So okay, and I respect that, thank you. I hear you, I believe you, I believe that's what was said to you. That said, that's not accurate. The whole
I've
plan-
posted multiple times publicly that I've responded to the emails that have asked that our plan was to put forth something at town meeting to be voted on, and if it was voted no, we would not move forward. I've said that every time somebody's asked me.
And we're actually,
Hamilton
we're
town-
actually, Hamilton annual town meeting next spring.
Next
We're not-
spring.
We're not even talking, no, next spring.
That's what
A year
y'all
from now.
asked for,
It's a
was
year
to
from now.
delay
We're
until
not-
after the fall.
We don't have to file till December of '24.
This is why we haven't done anything. We've
That's-
been
that-
waiting,
and that's-
hiring consultants.
Can I answer the question? Sorry. Unfortunately, public comment is supposed to be you make a comment and we don't say anything, and we're trying to answer the same questions. We understand that you're angry, so just please give me a second, all right? Last fall, last summer, last fall, the town got financial assistance from the state to hire a consultant to come up with the beginnings of a plan for 3A. We didn't like it. We sent it back to them, asked them to rework it again. It came back, and we again said, this isn't going to pass if we bring it to town meeting. So, working with the Hamilton Development Corp. And the Planning Board, and there's a member of the Planning Board that's part of this committee, we asked town meeting for $125,000 to hire a consultant, and Hamilton Development Corp. Has given us at least $25,000 and may offer more. So we went out and advertised. We hired Util, a company, to do what Ms. Beaulieu said earlier, which is to work us through a process that will take at least a year. We have just signed the contract with them. They're just going to be starting here at the end of May, and we've already said, we know we won't get this done in time for the December deadline, but we want to make sure that if we do this, we do it the right way. We're not trying to take anything away from the residents and the voters of the town of Hamilton. The plan was always to follow a process, involve the public beginning this summer in our meetings, and if something comes out of that we can bring forward to town meeting, bring it to town meeting and see what town meeting does. There was never an intent not to follow the process.
My question still stands. If you understood this law, how would you even
I don't know that I do.
And I think that's,
I've read it front to back.
yeah,
I've been tracking towns that passed, that didn't.
I'm in the Facebook group, the anti, we are taking in as much information as we can. There just hasn't been there hasn't even been a process of decision-making. And that's where I'm not trying to, say that there's overreaction or anything like that. I am watching the reactions happen, and those are going to be part of the process. And I say it again, this is not a pro 3A board. We've got a lot of fires that we've been trying to sort of tackle, and this has been the one that's in the future. And I actually said to somebody recently, a lack of articulated focus is not a lack of interest or concern. It's just in the priority list right now, we're trying to get through some of these other things. We had the 133 ZBA stuff coming up and what we were gonna do about that. We've had the school stuff that's been going on, getting through that. And when we say it sounds like there's suspicion or things are curious, or it is normal people trying to keep up with lives and these jobs and figure out what fires to put out when and what the order needs to be. And I promise you that there has been no decision made to acquiesce to 3A. That has not happened.
And real quick, since
I had, though, you can see where the questions I had about the lease in that land,
Yeah.
how it can kind of make people suspicious.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, and I want to comment on that too. I don't know how we can get in discussions or not, seeing it's public, it's just 3-minute public comment. There's been a ton of discussion on that. And if you go back and watch the meeting where the superintendent came in and asked us, I was concerned about that. I said, if we say one or the other, it's going to look like we're biased and we want to do something. And what's the web page that they have for the building authority group? And there's a sheet and it's documented and clear. And they went through a rating system and voted. And clearly they were leaning towards the Cutler School, one where they wanted to do something, whether it was a new school or not, just on the rating, not a vote, on their ratings. And we were forced for them to go back to the MSBA, they had to have a commitment from the town for at least a 50-year lease. And we were skeptics about saying anything because we didn't want to look that way, exactly what you came up and accused us of doing. But if you go back and no, I know you're not. It was good, Deb. I mean, but what happened in that meeting was, they said, if you want to have a voice in any of this, now's our only opportunity. And we said, all things being equal then, if you come through and you make a decision, we need to offset, some of these costs that are coming to the town. And the only way we can do that is in the downtown area and do something mixed use. And so if we had a vote and all things being equal on what you were going to do, we would prefer to do that.
I just clarify that a little bit too, or add to, not clarify, but add to that a little bit too. The select board had a pretty robust conversation about it. There were members that didn't really want to take a vote that night. But one of the things that is important to remember is that the MSBA project is being looked at right now and is currently on hold because the school committee voted to do some local polling in Hamilton, Wenham. That process was started for a Cutler School improvement or replacement. And the way the Winthrop got brought into it was that in both towns, we had trouble identifying sites, and Winthrop School site became a possibility if you were going to do a consolidated school. So one of the things was that if we voted to give a 50-year lease to the Winthrop School, then we're saying we only want a consolidated school. The select board didn't want to make that vote at all. They wanted to let the school building committee figure out which preferences. You could do a consolidated school or a Cutler School replacement, small school, on the Cutler School site, but you can't do a Cutler School replacement at the Winthrop School site if you're leaving the Winthrop School there. So the only real option was, and they did say too, that if the school building committee voted a different way, they could come back and get a different vote from the select board, but they were not trying to prejudice the vote on the school. They only wanted to say that if you're doing a Cutler School project, and it's going to involve the Cutler School, we want you to do it on the Cutler School site. And in that way there, you could do either a consolidation and a big school or just a Cutler School replacement. It was not meant to prejudice toward a consolidated. It was meant to say you could do either one here. At the Winthrop School site, you could only do a consolidated because it had to include the Cutler School. That's how the town got into the process with the Cutler School. So the only thing you could do in the current process with the MSBA at the Winthrop School site is a large consolidated school. You couldn't do a small school there.
Which is why the MSBA is driving.
MSBA always drives this because they bring 45 to 50% of the money, and that they do it in every community. It isn't just here.
With the option, and I'll be quiet, and I do hope that I can just get those questions, maybe I'll come to you and get those specific questions,
Yeah.
that the option of renovating Winthrop was off the table on
Be-
the vote.
because
It wouldn't be covered by Mass. So if we do that, we just extend the lease and we pay for it as a town.
Right.
It wasn't part of that process.
It was taken off the discussion.
It wasn't.
Because only if I heard.
But there was never an option that included us doing anything just on that site
Not
that
because
we
of our
didn't pay
input.
for.
It was taken off the list because the school was
Right.
continuing their process and decided they wanted Cutler. Now, if they wanted to renovate them, we would have pulled that 50-year lease back on that one too and probably just gone with 10 years again on both schools.
Because if we renovate,
They needed
nothing's
the
covered.
language to go to the MSBA.
Tracy say, because we only have a 5-year lease on Winthrop, that was off the table, so even though the
That's
slide
wrong.
So I like and respect Eric, but I think he misspoke there because quite frankly, that was not what the board voted and again, a replacement of just the Winthrop School is not an option right now because the school that got them into the process is the Cutler School. That's the one that the state said, that one needs work, we'll work with you on it, all right? So when it came up and they started talking about it, what are the options? Well, we could do a consolidated school from Cutler and Winthrop, and that allowed the Winthrop site to be considered. But the minute you got away from talking about a consolidated school and you wanted to keep open the option to do a small school, it had to be at the Cutler site.
I don't think that
I-
that doesn't
that-
make sense. We
Th-
can-
There were.
To
there
just
were-
completely
so-
renovate an existing school
Or-
in the size that it is.
No, we know it's moved on since then, but originally that was still on the table, was a renovation or a replacement of the Cutler School on the Cutler School site. That was still an option until the school building committee made their vote, so.
Can I say something? I just want to make it clear, this consultant that's been hired is to indeed see if there's some way that they can come up with a plan that the town will agree upon. And the bottom line is, the select board does not vote on that, the planning board does not vote on that, the voters, all of us vote on that. Nobody is taking that right away. And if it's voted down, it's voted down. If it's approved, it's approved. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah,
that'll-
that goes to the town as well.
Goes to the
Yes.
town.
There are many, many layers to what would have to happen in order for the existing Winthrop site to be.
One of the things
We've-
we've had for new business, right, I know, but it's worth it. I mean, they're passionate, and I love that people are out.
Yes.
Our new business, and one of the things I was gonna talk about tonight, is we need an information push to everybody, ourselves and the community. I want Joe to stand up a page on our website, Wenham's done it, you know, and lay out what the law is about, what it means, the impact, fact sheets, all that type of stuff. And then this consultant, and I don't like that it's linked to 3A, although I knew it would, you know, it's really just form-based zone coding, which is smart, on how we can define what that area is gonna look like, whether it's 3A or whether it's something else. If the property comes back, we can't wait. We need to have a plan and understand what we might wanna do with it. So I wanna put that aside and make sure, you know, this wasn't, you know, something we thought about 2 years ago, and okay, we'll get the school, we'll do the lease, we'll have a consultant, and boom, we're gonna, you know, welcome to downtown Lynn, right, on the train station. I have huge concerns about 3A, huge. The outreach, I mean, the 3A and 40B, you know, we're not gonna have any rights on any of the property. So I wanna start the webpage, stand it up, have open forums, whether they're through the consultants or meeting like this. We're gonna talk about it, and I wanna know the impact. And I wanna have it in an open forum. It's not gonna be, you know, the 5-board select board that, you know, making decisions and then you reading about it in the
Right.
paper. I don't know, that's never been the plan. It's always been, you know, we're gonna devise something and go to town meeting, like every other town, you're hearing about them. Milton, all of them had a public meeting and it was voted up or down, rejected or passed. That's gonna happen in Hamilton, my understanding is in April. Maybe there'll be a fall meeting thing, but that's been my thought, because by December, we need to go file back.
Sir,
at
if
the-
you, I mean, just because you haven't identified yourself yet, so for the record, we'd like to. Well, we,
Oh, sure.
They can go.
it hasn't come up to me. I hadn't seen it, sorry, thank you,
Go ahead. Name and street, please.
thank you, sorry about that.
Stephen McWhorter, 18 Cunningham Drive, Hamilton. I actually did some analysis.
Love that.
It's on here. It's from the Massachusetts Building Board. At a few other meetings I heard, we have to do things because there's money. I just heard again tonight, that percentage of, we have to go through with that application because we're going to lose that money. The money is not 49%. I did an analysis, comparable school, if you were going to do a non-community school, with respect the board. I love what you guys do. Respect the school committee board. I went to school, I can do math, and I actually do consulting. So what my consultant spreadsheet tells me right now is that Watertown, Massachusetts, that would be considered a non-community school. It's a high school, and everybody from the town has to go to it. It's spec'd out at $199 million. Any guess how much money they got? All in, $49 million. A little less than 25%. That's a city school. So if you read their regulations, Hamilton is only going to get 25%.
30.
That's what I just wanted to tell you.
Yep.
And I'm going to have all your schools spec'd out for you. I'm going to know what it's going to cost to replace Cutler, Winthrop, Buca, as far as a remodel, and I'll tell you what a non-community school will cost, and that's without solar panels on the roof. In Watertown, they didn't budget that in. They were 25 million, and they only had 10 million to cover that. They were 15 million shortfall. I just wanted to clear that up.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you.
And the town will have the opportunity to vote that up or down as well, to spend for the schools. That's still coming.
Yeah, the bond for that is
The town could stop that in its tracks
Yep.
in April. Yeah, and you might be right, I don't know, I've looked at some, they're 38 is what I was seeing, the schools is telling us, upper 40s. Yeah, please do. But if it does go through and it gets voted positive, I'll take 25%, I'll take something. If the town says we're gonna spend 150 or 200 million, that's a lot of money to spend. I mean, the things that are on the docket with the schools and otherwise is more capital spend than I've ever seen in this town.
I'm going to regret saying this on camera. I think the conversation that we probably need to have is that we need to put, in some form or fashion, at least $100 million into our schools over the next 10 years. The question is, do we spend 150 to get 100? Do we spend 125 to spend 100? Do we spend 199? I don't know. But just the renovation and repairs that have been spec'd for 2 of their 3 schools is 100 million, and that's not covered at all, which I'm sure you've seen. To build a consolidated school is 150, of which we may be bonding 100. We're going to be spending a lot of money on our schools. Are we going to bond it 100 million at a time? Are we going to bond it 50 million at a time? Are we going to bond it for repair and basic upgrades? Or are we going to bond it for new schools? I don't know. That's the choice of the town. But I do think we need to be very realistic that there will be $100 million bonded in some way to this town for schools in the next 10 years. And that's probably not even thinking about what's coming in the high school and middle school. That part of the conversation is gross and true. I think the conversation that the town is switching to is, if we're going to pay $100 million, what are people's expectations for what they get out of it? And that seems to be where we are diverting as a town. Is it basic upgrades and repairs to the existing community schools, or is it a brand new school? And that, I can't make that decision for people. That's an incredibly personal decision. I have a son at Bucher. We've loved our experience at Bucher. I don't know if it's better than, worse than, or the same than a bigger school. I don't know the answer to that, but people will have to make that decision for themselves. But the money itself is gag-worthy, no matter how you cut it.
So what you're saying, the school spend is common, whether it's the location and the size.
Yeah,
the
location, size, grants, those can all factor in, but just the repairs, if we just repaired all 3, you're looking at $100 million.
Right, but the option for the vote, is it going to be new school for the 100,
50.
with some kickback, or renovate the existing 2? Like, that's not what the vote's gonna be.
Well, the renovated existing 2 isn't covered. So if it doesn't pass, we just bring that in as a
But they
product.
went through those 14 scenarios over the last year.
Regardless, right? It can either be spending 150 and you get some reimbursed,
Right.
or it's spending 100 without the control of the government.
Yeah. So that's why you vote down the 150 and then somebody brings forward a renovation project.
The way it's being presented to the town is new shiny school consolidated 750 or not. You either love your kids and give them something shiny, or you don't.
And that, honestly, like, that's
What the town,
that's community politic narrative, honestly. It's because of the way that this happens. And honestly, a lot of that is driven not by the school committee itself. It's driven by the conversations happening on Facebook amongst the community.
But they didn't just come up with that. Sorry about this light on me, but I mean, this is for a year. They've been talking about 14 scenarios, which were iron rail or different locations, or keep the schools and renovate. And they came to, this scenario after a year's work of meetings and school committee. And I mean, it was driven by a community input process.
Well,
From what I
in-
saw. I mean,
Right, in
whether-
all honesty, it was heavily marketed within the schools, and it was only when there was finally some pushback that there was some community input. So I have to agree that there has not been a wide outreach, and hopefully now, with this survey that's going to be going out, there will be a wider community input, and perhaps they'll rethink what they're going to do. And I'm very glad that they opted to do the community survey. I'm very much for listening to people and gaining a consensus from voters. It's not what we want, and it's not what the school committee wants. It's what people feel is reasonable for their kids and what we can afford.
And
Let's
I think I
recognize-
speak
hold on,
for
we
the
have
board,
somebody.
a lease is not a factor on this. The lease is not a driving factor that, we don't have an option anymore, take it off the table.
Eric Priest has said that.
That's not the case, and Joe, if we could follow up.
Go ahead.
please.
Yeah, I'll
I
follow up
want to
with
recognize. Go ahead. Name, street.
Yeah, that's-
Hi there,
that's
thank
not
you.
right.
Ted Lovinger, 345 Bay Road. I don't have any prepared comments, but just listening to the conversation, I just wanted to stand up and say a few things. Appreciate everyone's time here and the fact that you're all here serving on the select board, and appreciate everyone's comments here tonight as well. So a couple things. I think there's perception. Perception becomes reality very quickly in a small town. And so on March 18th, when the select board decided to only extend the Winthrop School a lease for 5 years, the perception became reality pretty quick in terms of what the end outcome of the select board was. And so the school building committee was supposed to be this independent, at least it was positioned as an independent entity that was assessing what was best for the schools for the town of Hamilton and Wenham. They started, I think, with 25 options, narrowed it to 12, ultimately there was 5. But this board decided for that school building committee, they gave them one choice. Hold on. A 5-year lease at Winthrop told that school building committee that school was not going to be there. Within 5 years, 300 or so kids from Winthrop needed to go to school somewhere, right? Where do they go to school? One option. So this idea that this vote of the select board on March 18th was somehow didn't have an impact, it's just an illusion. There was an illusion of choice that this town thought the school building committee was bringing forward that we never had. There was one option, a school of 740 kids at Cutler, because Winthrop was not gonna be there any longer. So I don't know how the select board doesn't see that.
If you look at the rating system, though, pardon me, if you will, it was overwhelmingly, for the Cutler option.
Right,
Just did
I
not
agree.
all of a sudden throw it in because
Hold
of
on,
that
hold on,
rating.
time out, time out. So the Cutler option had multiple options.
Yes, it did.
The school building committee could have said, and if they say still, we want a school of 280, a new school, 280 kids, or a school of 430. For some reason, that option was taken off the table as well. They could say 430, and then this board needs to go back and give Winthrop their lease back. So why could this board,
We
hold
said
on,
If you go play the tape.
hold on.
Five would turn to 10 in a heartbeat.
But why? Why make the decision beforehand?
The
Why
only
not, say, hold
reason
on.
50 was is to file back with
Okay.
MSBA. They had to show commitment with the town.
And Cutler could have had that.
Committed if it goes
Cutler
that
could
way.
have had that, and you could have held your tongue on Winthrop.
Actually,
You-
they did.
We
They
did. We did
they
not
didn't
make a
vote- they
comment
didn't
on
vote-
Winthrop.
Didn't vote it down.
They did
We
not vote
only
on
So
voted-
was there not a 5-year lease on Winthrop?
They didn't vote any extension at all on with it. They said they were, again.
Only going to
they
do
only
Cutler.
did
That's
a
all that was
54
required.
minutes To show the commitment to the state that the town was, the select board was gonna back a new school.
Okay.
They would do a
That's where you
50-year
end
lease on
up.
the
We-
Cutler
we will
site
support your-
on whatever
your
option
decision.
that they wanted.
But we
And then
couldn't
if
do
the
that.
school building committee wanted to do a consolidated school at Winthrop, they would come back and ask for it, and they'd give them a different vote. But they definitely.
Okay, so this may be where perceptions become reality, because the
Absolutely.
town thinks that
I
there's,
get, but-
so there's not a 5-year lease extension, because I thought I saw that somewhere that you could, yeah. He did say
It's
it at the
what,
school
I think
building
it's what's
committee.
remaining on the lease.
So,
That lease is up in 25.
The approval that we did on the April 22nd was only
No.
Cutler.
May, March.
March 18th, I thought.
Sorry, March 18th. I'm sorry, I was looking at the minutes from,
Yeah, I'm looking for him.
That was,
we committed to a 50-year lease. And part of the reason we couldn't actively extend 50 years to Winthrop was A, because we were told that there was never going to be a plan whereby we could build a new school at Winthrop because it wasn't part of what we'd filed with the Mass School Building. But also, in the event that we did go with a consolidated school, not because we were pushing for it, and we then decided to go through the path of creating new zoning for a mixed use or something within the district, we would not be able to do that for at least 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. So we just delayed having that conversation.
okay, because I think there is record of Eric saying that it was a 5-year lease for Winthrop, and I'm not the only one saying that.
I can't speak to what Eric said, but the minutes that are gonna be voted by the select board tonight from the March 18th meeting, Chair Farrell mentioned the lease could be extended on both the Cutler and Winthrop school sites, but he would prefer not to do that. Attorney McInerney clarified that the board has authority to approve up to a 30-year lease. More than that requires approval at town meeting. Discussion continued, the possible outcomes and the options for renewing the leases on both Cutler and Winthrop. The board agreed that extending a 50-year lease on the Cutler site. Oh, it does say a 5-year extension. I don't remember that. 5-year extension for the Winthrop site is the preferred option.
Yeah.
Well, because
So-
we couldn't do 50, because if it became a full, if we did move it, we would not be able to do anything on Winthrop at all.
Well, we'll noted that we made that error, so.
So, and this is all tied to the MBTA housing plan, so that's the perception in town. We needed to vacate this space so we have the flexibility to do what the state wants. And so, and that-
If I could offer, prior to my getting here, so I've been your town manager for about 5.5 years. I came in the fall of 2018. Prior to me getting here, the town's lease with the Cutler, or with the Winthrop school site had expired. And the select board at that time extended not a 5-year lease, but I believe it was either a 10 or 15-year lease. It was before I got here. So that it would coincide and be up at the same time as Cutler. Because the select board at that time, like I said, I'm not sure if it was 10 years or 15 years ago. Bill might know because he was around. The intention was to get the school department to make a move and start fixing the elementary schools and get us on a page where something could happen with one of the sites somewhere. The first site that got accepted into the MSBA process was the Cutler School. They put letters of intent in on both schools, and the MSBA came out and toured both schools. In fact, they even toured the Bucher because I was with them. I went through the site with the MSBA, and they wound up saying that the Cutler School was the school in most need of repair. So that was how Cutler got added in. That happened after the MBTA community housing law passed in 2021, which, again, the town of Hamilton signed on to a letter with all the other municipalities around us trying to call out the problems with the 3A zoning law. We talked to the state. We had joint meetings with town administrators and select board members and the executive director of housing and economic development at the time. We kept pushing back on these are the problems and the issues with it. The state passed the law anyway. So then it became what you normally do when the state passes a law is you try to figure out how to comply. Is there a way to comply? That is what we're doing. We haven't put forward anything that said that we're going to comply. We haven't put forward a plan to you yet, to the voters at town meeting, to adopt zoning. The plan is to do that next April. Again, 3 to 4 months after our deadline. We've already planned to miss the deadline. I mean, we don't love it, but it is what it is. And the goal is to have community meetings with you all and everybody else in the town. Get your feedback, get your input, get the ideas from you, from the consultants who've been doing this, not 3A, but just doing community planning for a long time, and see if there's a way forward. Bring the best plan forward, and if it passes a town meeting, it passes. If it fails a town meeting, it fails. We go from there. To preemptively just tell the state no without trying to follow a process, I think, is in bad faith. You should at least try to comply with state laws. So. Yeah, well, yes, all of it. I mean, really, it's all. We're going to have a community forum. I think when we were meeting Wednesday morning to try to figure out when it's going to be, and the goal is going to be to do an interactive meeting here that'll be videotaped by HWCAM and then rebroadcast multiple times in advance of the consultants starting to work in the community and asking questions and getting input. So again, we're at the very beginning of the process. The narrative that exists on Facebook that the town has already planned to do something, that we've already made our decision, none of that's true. We're at the very beginning here. So that kind of, the train has left the station without us, unfortunately. We have been trying to keep this slow and planned on purpose. And folks, rightfully looked at the law and they got scared by it. We're scared by it. We knew what the original consultants that the state sent us provided to us. We knew that wouldn't pass. So we said, well, we can't put that forward.
Is there a way to undo what happened on March 18th with the 5-year lease and have that be up so that it wouldn't have to be discarded as an option to renovate Winthrop and then not push forward?
So-
Because it seemed to me like, seriously, I watched that meeting and it was very clear because there was on the screen with
Yeah.
all the options,
Yeah.
including the Winthrop option to renovate. And he said, ignore all of those because now that it's a 5-year lease, we cannot do it. So I'm just telling you, look at the recording. I think everyone here who's heard that can back me up. So if there's a way to unwind that, since I don't think that
Well,
was your intention.
I think that process has already been. I think that process has already been unwound because
we can certainly talk to Eric. I mean, I think, and maybe this was a misunderstanding. Yeah, we'll talk to Eric. Yeah, if you don't come to the mic, the folks on Zoom can't hear it. The question was whether we can go back now and extend the lease to allow more breathing room within the process for those options. I think the answer is yes, we can go back and have that conversation. I don't know that we can actually change the course of this, but we're meeting on Wednesday. We can have this conversation with Eric. And I think one of the things that I need to clarify is that my understanding was because this was a Cutler School project, none of the options that included small schools were covered by the grant. And that's what we were voting on, was what we could do with the money from the state within a project. And so if we decided to completely renovate Cutler, that would be out of our own or Winthrop, that would be out of our own pocket. And we could do that separately. But that this conversation was either combined school at Cutler or complete renovation of Cutler. That's ultimately what's being asked, because none of that money goes over to Winthrop. It's not covered. Yeah.
But also the reality is the MSBA will only accept one project at a time.
At a time.
So,
To go back.
so that's the reality. And I think ultimately Cutler was the option. Whatever happens there, happens. But if the option for a consolidated school is voted down, the kids will need a place to go, so there will be a lease renewal, right? We would have to do that. So I don't think people should get too worried about that in the sense that we can only do one renovation at a time, and the children will have a school. So, boy, they're really.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I've lost complete control of
Yeah,
this
but
meeting.
that's not the point, though. I think.
I'm going,
I want to make sure this board is clear with Eric and others that
Right.
the lease is not a limiting factor here.
which we,
The discussion I was at, and I just simply agree that we.
there's actually language in what we approved that said this is not an endorsement or preferential to any of the options. It was literally, we were just, and so again, I apologize if that, was part of where this started to unravel. We have a meeting on Wednesday with Eric. We will absolutely chat more about that.
Should we get, and I know Tom's not here, he was on that committee, I want to see the rating sheet, and each
can
of
get
the
the-
scenarios were rated with a percent,
Yep.
and I want to, because the lease was not ever part of that, in my understanding. If that was said in a meeting, oh, it's off the table now, and we were the scapegoat, maybe, or whatever, I'm not saying
Maybe,
scapegoat.
maybe.
And so,
That's
too.
wrong.
I'm going to stop us here. Who says town government isn't
So
exciting?
I would like to get all that information and
You
have
are
a
just-
dedicated
you are
meeting
good. I'm
to
gonna,
it. I'm on fire right
yeah,
now.
you are on fire.
They're right.
This boy
Right,
is on
exactly.
fire. Is there anyone online who has been waiting to speak this entire time who feels the deep frustration of Zoom?
I don't see any hands up.
Okay.
Find the sheet.
Respectfully, if anybody has anything new, I welcome you to the podium. If it's just a rebuttal, I hope you'll just send it to me in an angry email. Yes. Can you go to the microphone, please?
Thank you, Ellen Wright for Asbury Ave. I just have one final question about the consultant that's been retained to do a feasibility study or whatever it is with regards to 3A. So if the consultant comes back, arguably, and says, well, you can do 450 units, 731 isn't in the crystal ball. Your plan is to go to the state and say, this is what we can give you?
Our plan is to go to the town first and say, do y'all think this is a good plan? And if the town says, go pound sand, then we go to the state and say, we got nothing. We're not doing anything. The state pulls whatever they pull, whatever that is. If the town says, we love this plan, then we would file our 3A plan with the state based on what the town voted for.
But
Right.
It's too late.
Right.
We are now building 731 units on that land. You don't
Right.
understand the way, this is what I'm trying to get through to you.
But what I'm hearing is if we do nothing, they come back and tell us what to do. And if we do something, they come back and tell us what to do.
Yes, so file an amicus brief.
So, and that, now that we have this, I think we can absolutely talk to town council and see. I understand that, but I also have to represent that there are as many people who believe in 3A and want it
no, they don't. Where are they?
in our own town.
As,
Where are they? Where are they? Where are they?
so as,
We had 150 people last week.
No, y'all,
no,
And that was by word of mouth.
we don't doubt you.
Went out stymied, unbelievable.
I
They were here.
I 100% understand and empathize, agree. And again, I'm not trying to represent a perspective here. I'm saying the journey to understand whether or not this is a ubiquitous decision that the town wants to make to join this and defend a lawsuit or whatever it is that we need to do, that has to come from the town. If we're going to be part of a lawsuit that costs taxpayers hundreds of thousands of dollars to challenge the state, that is a decision of the town, not of this. But you cannot tell me to slow down and tell me to speed up at the same time.
Well, I mean,
Which we are actively doing, but this is diametrically opposed to say, slow down, take your time, figure out what we want to do, don't rush this, and then say, hurry up and do something. That is feedback that is difficult to process.
well, I don't really see any language in the law, and maybe I misread it, that allows for negotiation of the 731. So if the consultant came back and said, oh yeah, 450 units will work, and the town was like, sounds good, let's do it, 450 units. You go to the state with that.
But we're also talking about waiting until next April, and I just heard from this group that
can
what
I-
we think
can-
is that this
can I
is going to be made unconstitutional in the fall,
So again, you're spending how much on a consultant? 125,000?
which is not for 3A. It is a form-based code business overlay district consultant who also has the purview to look at 3A and help us with this process.
And how much of that time is allocated to 3A?
I have no idea.
It's for a town.
It's-
for a
it's
town
still
center.
money.
It's-
So my point is, it's all for naught. They're not negotiating for whatever they come up with. 2 units, 450. If it's not 731, it doesn't make the bank. And oh, by the way, West Newbury, this is an interesting statistic. They have a greater land population than us, yet a smaller population, their adjacent community. The state told them to put in 85 units. More land, smaller population, they get told 85. We get 731.
Yep.
And you're gonna hire a consultant, go try to reason with the state. If this town thinks it's a good idea,
We're hiring this consultant to better understand the options available to this town for a multitude of things. One of them is 3A, at which point it will go before the town. And if the town says, absolutely not, this is not something we want, then we will not.
I've already said that we expect to miss the.
We
deadline.
expect to
We've
miss
al-
the
we've al-
deadline.
We've set up our schedule and acknowledging that we're going to miss that deadline.
We're not gonna make
And,
it.
you know, we're gonna let the state know we're doing it, and we're
Pardon?
gonna hope that.
They've pushed it already once.
They
right?
pushed it once, and again, a lot of this is, I feel like I'm hearing conflicting things, which is that we expect that it's going to be ruled unconstitutional, and there's all this stuff, so they may be in a negotiating position come April. The state may be backing off and saying, relative to the needs of towns, I don't know. But what we want to do is say, if we were mandated by the state to come up with a reasonable plan for what we could do with space that was available, of which there is zero right now. There's zero space available right now. And if depending on what happens with the schools, there may still be zero space. Only,
Will buy, yeah.
but they have to buy available space, of which,
I understand what you're saying. If I'm an owner, I'm gonna sell for big money.
yeah.
Right,
Two or
right.
3 times the
Right.
value of your house, absolutely. Yeah, of course they are.
Absolutely.
In a minute.
Except that from a business perspective, that doesn't work. Developers are in the business to try to make money, and paying you 2 or 3 times the value of your property to get into the game puts them behind the 8 ball to begin with.
I do, and
absolutely
you're
do.
right, I'm sure the state will come back with grant money for developers, they're gonna open the space and then
already
give the
is.
money.
yeah.
I know
$4
that.
billion.
And Boston's
Kidding.
exempt, no one mentioned that, why are they exempt? I didn't hear that, I heard
Okay.
it everywhere else, but
I'd like to try to close this.
Oh, please, I love that.
So Lou Terranova, 54 Woodland Mead. This has been a very interesting and very informative discussion tonight, and I would request vehemently that the board really tries to take control of everything that you just said. The reason why there are a lot of people out there that think that 3A is wonderful is, and all you have to do is go onto Facebook, and it's the usual chattering masses, a very vocal minority that's pushing an agenda, and it's seizing the initiative from this board. They are dictating what the public opinion is. You have to take charge. You have to really think about how you control the narrative on this. You've heard a number of people tonight speak to what is really going on out there. Trust me, Facebook is a bubble. It's an echo chamber. This is your reality. Please start taking control of the narrative consistent to what you've said to us tonight and what's come to you tonight during this forum. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I will say that in my 2+ years, I've never seen more than 5 minutes of public comment, and it's like, we just brought it all tonight.
buckle up.
At the,
It's about time.
the last thing I'm going to say actually is not relevant to any specific thing, but we did approve budget for a communications manager
Yes.
for the town. And part of that is the very real need to find better ways to distribute information. And there are many ways right now. Some folks do know, some don't. There's the town manager report you can get on an email that you are updated every week by our good friend Joe here. What's going on?
Every other week.
Every other week. I apologize. We say, but I will say, we say there's a town manager report. People don't read email. We say it's on Facebook. They say they're not on Facebook. We say it's on the big board outside the fire station. I don't read when I drive. Good idea. Don't text either. It is a very, to take a phrase from my childhood, you know, a lie gets all the way around the world before the truth can put its boots on. And that is very true in this town. And I do try to monitor the conversations as best I can, mostly online and when I'm at Crosby's and people corner me in the produce section. But we are doing our best. But if you have constructive ideas for how to distribute honest information, well, please email us and let us know. Because it's really challenging. We tried using the red alert system once. Half the people loved it. Half the people thought it was a violation of their text, of their phone. It's just very difficult to find solutions that work for everybody. And it's actually, I find, harder in a small town than a larger town where there is better infrastructure for communication. But we do our best to respond to emails. If you send us an email, we'll try to get back to you. Please share your conversation. I know Bill has asked many times to have a dedicated 3A meeting with the board where we download information. I definitely think if we do something like that, folks like y'all that are, you know, experts in this should come and defend the position if you think it's being misrepresented. We only do the best we can with the information that's given to us. And I will say that that information sometimes is subjective, or presented to us as objective and ends up being subjective. But thank you for the conversation. I am always grateful for folks who bring thoughtful, you know, dedicated, engaged perspectives. And so thanks for coming and being here. And with that, I am going to close public comment for this meeting. We good? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up, I will entertain a motion to, you can leave without feeling bad. It's okay, I've been there. Next up is approval of our consent agenda. I will entertain.
So I move that we approve the consent agenda as outlined.
Second?
Awesome. Any discussion, anything we need to talk about here? Your ping pong table, you should put it on Buy Nothing. All right, I will take a vote.
You don't need a roll call vote. You're all in.
Oh, sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it.
Oh, rats.
Well, here we are at 8:13, beginning our agenda. The first item tonight is to approve the issuance and details of the loan from the Mass Clean Water Trust for the recently approved septic loan program. Folks who do not remember the septic loan program, that's essentially the loan program that we approved so that folks in the town who need to replace their septics can take out a low interest, is it low or no?
It's a low.
Low 2%?
I think we agreed on 2%. Yeah.
2% interest loan directly through the town, but through the state. And so this is the issuance of the lien of the
loan.
and the details of the loan itself.
So, yeah, Caroline nailed it. It's already been approved by town meeting and by the select board and proposed by the FinCom and the Board of Health. And acceptance of these documents allows us to get the health department to start making the program available to the residents who need assistance with fixing their septic systems. This has the benefit of helping us make sure that people who may be short on money but need to fix their systems have access to inexpensive loan to be able to fix those systems. They repay it and it goes back to the state. This is for $500,000. The reason you all need to vote in favor of it is because it sets up like it's bonding. We had to go through basically a credit check. And this basically authorizes that and says that everything's in order.
And there's no cost or interest of any sort on this to the town. This is, we're really connecting two programs.
We
No,
do
citizens
take
and programs.
the interest is ours though. The 2% belongs to the
2%
town.
comes to the town.
We get it, right?
We
but
get
there's
it.
no cost.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
saying.
yep. It is absorbed by the administrative.
We're taking a $500,000 loan out.
It's not like it's gonna make the town a lot of money. It's just so we can pay our expenses from administrative
Yeah.
programs.
Right.
I will entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the issuance and details of the loan from the Mass Clean Water Trust for the septic loan program.
Second?
Any further discussion?
So I'll just have a question. We will just keep that on the books here, or does that stay with the state? It stays with us.
The money
and
comes into our bank account. It's kept on the books here by the treasurer and.
Okay,
and then-
and
the Board of Health.
500,000?
Yep.
Yes,
Right,
ma'am.
And when
okay.
it's expended, we'd have to go through the process of borrowing it again.
Right.
So.
Okay, great, thank you.
All right. All in favor?
Aye,
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it. Well
Who made the motion?
I did.
that would be our friend. All right. Now for the main event. Director Sean Timmons.
And, yeah, Mr. Director, was right.
Pardon?
Yes, nothing, sorry. My bad.
Doing the best I can here.
No, you're doing
Buddy.
great. You're doing great. I apologize.
I'm hot. I haven't eaten dinner.
Good evening, Sean Timmons, Hamilton Wenham Recreation Director. So I have two items, two items on the agenda, I guess. One is just my department update, and then second, obviously Tim, the DPW Director, is here as well with me to talk about Patton Park a little bit. But just to really, I'll be super brief on our update. We had a lot of things. Obviously, we're kind of gearing up for the summer, so we've been incredibly busy. The last time at the end of the summer when I spoke to the board, we sort of talked about how our department was going to update and sort of change our registration for camp, since we had such a pretty amazing response to our camp registration last summer. So this year we did make some changes. I thought they were fairly significant changes from how we've done registration in the past. I think, for the most part, things worked out well, especially for community members that have multiple children across multiple age groups. I think it really gave them basically the same ability to register for camp as anybody else. So we definitely, I definitely saw, positives out of that. Still, unfortunately, when we hit our max number, we hit our max number. So our max number for camp each day is 226. So once we have 226 or, spread out across our 8 groups, we just physically cannot take any more kids down there, in a safe manner. There are weeks for our camp registration, and believe it or not, if we took everyone off the waiting list, we'd be pushing 330, 340 kids, which is great, which, I'm happy that folks are interested and want to take part of the camp program, but, at some point, it just becomes a little too much. We are working on our staffing. Our staffing is all set for the camp of the summer. We're employing, proud to say, we're employing over 50 seasonal staff for the summer camp, which does include a lot of, local high school and college students. So always nice to see for the camp. Really quickly on the pool, cover comes off May 21st. It takes about 2.5 weeks when the cover comes off to get the water to be swimmable. We do a lot of work down on the deck and in the lifeguard office once the pool cover comes off, but we're planning on a June 18th opening, which is consistent with years past. It's the third Saturday in June. We are just about finished with our staffing, so I was getting a little nervous there. If you asked me a month ago, I'd probably have a different answer about our staffing for the pool. But, we've been working really hard, and our current staff has been working really hard for us trying to recruit staff. So we will be fully staffed for this summer. The one thing that we're going to strive to do again is stay open through Labor Day or to Labor Day. We've been able to accomplish that 3 summers in a row now, which is great. But again, a lot of that, it's tough to tell at this point. Obviously a lot of that has to do with, our employees, their situations going back to college. We also hire a lot of high school employees that might start fall sports or things like that. That can kind of put a wrench in that. So the hope is to be open to Labor Day, and we're going to do our best as we've done the last 3 summers to get there. So that's really quickly on the summer. Couple of things that have been just recently did, and we have upcoming is I met with the Hamilton COA board last week. A lot of fun. Had a nice discussion with them. So we're working on different opportunities and recreational opportunities for members of the COA or just seniors in general within the town. So we have our pickleball program. For those of you who don't know, we've done a free pickleball program for the seniors indoors here during the bad weather, and we're moving outdoors to Patton Park next week. But it was really great to meet with them, and we have some kind of special events and little things that we're thinking about doing. So more info to come on that. The Community Block Party, Saturday, June 22nd. As always, the town sponsors the fireworks, so that's always a great event. So that is set for that day there. Next, starting May 23rd, we have our Thursday night music series at the Patton Homestead. So Holly's been working really hard getting bands lined up for that. So the bands are all lined up for that. That is free. We are, out of the 4 weeks, we do have something a little different this year. That's going to be on June 13th, and I'm sure there'll be more info to come for that. But we're doing sort of a benefit to help raise funds to kind of get across the goal line for the pavilion that will be down there. So we have some local bands, some younger local talent who are in bands that are going to be there to perform. We'll do some ticket sales, small ticket sales, just to try to kind of get past the finish line for the pavilion. I think that should be coming up on an upcoming select board agenda with Pat and Inc. And lastly, really excited about this. We did it last year for our first year. It's our ride or walk to school day. So it's on Friday, May 17th. We meet prior to school opening over at Pingree Park, and it's really geared for children who don't have the opportunity to ride their bikes to school or walk their bikes to school based upon where they live. So we work with SRO Bertelli, the Hamilton and Wenham Police. The Ed Fund this year are going to donate T-shirts for our kids, and Abbey Velo Bike Shops, which is a local kind of mobile bike repair, will then go to each school. We work with the teachers in the schools, so the kids will be at Pingree. They'll ride their bikes or walk to their each individual elementary school. During the school day, Abbey Velo Bike will go around to each individual school and tune up every single kid's bike. I think Gunther and Karen, I think they did over 225 bikes last year in a day. So it's really amazing, really fun. But we have that coming up on May 17th. So that's always a fun event. And that is all I have.
That was a good reminder that I was in charge of signing up for Bike to School Day, and I didn't, so I'm just going to do that.
Do it right now, yeah.
While we're here.
All free. I think right now we have close to 70 to 75 children, depending on how many you register, between 70 and 73 children registered for the Bike to School. So it's really a great event, and it's really a lot of fun.
Awesome. Well, we say it every year, but our summer program is the envy of folks across the land, and I think you do a great job. And I haven't explicitly asked anybody about the new registration, but maybe the fact that we didn't hear about it is the best news of all. Because I know that typically that's like, the running of the bulls to get your kid in the camp.
It still went very, very fast, but
did prices stay the same this year?
So we did. Just like anything else, we do increase our prices year after year. Minimum wage has actually stayed stable. This will be the first back-to-back year in maybe 6 years that minimum wage has stayed stable. So that helps. So I think after this particular summer, we'll be able to stabilize a little bit more of that. But, in 6 years, minimum wage has gone from $9.50 to $15, or the numbers might be incorrect, but it has gone up in, $7 probably an hour in the past, 5 or 6 years. So it's, that's always, certainly challenging.
No, great programs. I think the camp program's outstanding. I get a lot of positive feedback on that. You mentioned the pool. Yeah, I was curious how membership is on that, and also coupled with it with the COA. Great, you're doing programs with them. Do they have times with the pool for just them that are quieter?
Yeah, so basically, one on memberships. Memberships are typically a little bit slow at this time. We offer early bird discounts, so that starts kind of end of May. So like anything else, when that discount is about to go away, you'll get that big influx of membership registrations right prior to that. And yes, this year, in years past, and I've actually worked with Rosie on this a bunch, we've sort of it took a long time to kind of find the right time or the right spot to do it. But this year, this particular summer, it's Saturday mornings, 10 to 10:45. And that is seniors, Hamilton or Wenham seniors, swim, get to go into the pool for free.
I think it's 11 to...
It's 11 to 11:45. I did that at the COA meeting. You're right. Yep, it is. Yeah, it's 11 to 11:45. Thank you. Man, that's twice. You'd think I would have remembered. 11 to 11:45 on Saturdays. Yeah, and then we are working, we talked about maybe doing like a pool party for the seniors or something on a different time as well. So.
Good outreach. Thank you.
So
All
if I-
right.
If I can really quickly introduce the next item. You'll remember a couple months ago, the board voted to extend $250,000 to add to the sidewalk improvement fund out of ARPA, and then as well as $100,000 for Patton Park improvements. We had suggested that there's still ARPA money that we need to dedicate before the end of December, and that there might be room to do it in Patton Park. The board asked for a little bit more of a plan, a little bit more of a description of what was going to be needed there, and so we charged Tim and Sean to work with the consultants who helped us come up with the Patton Park Master Plan a couple years ago to come back to you if there was going to be a need for an additional request, so they're here.
What's it gonna be?
Sorry, this is coming out today. It will be included online for everybody. The consultants had trouble
Get extra
making
copies.
time in their schedule to meet with Sean and
I got extra
Tim. so-
copies if anybody.
I was gonna say, there was just. Also some extras here. All right, so how much is there, we had allocated 350 and there's a remainder, or does this include the 350?
So there's still money left. So you allocated at the last meeting, $250 for sidewalks and $100,000 for Patton
Yep.
Park. That money is approved. Then they've come to you now, I think that they're gonna talk about Phase A1 here, which would require additional funds to complete all of it.
What's left in ARPA though?
I will look for that while you.
I can't wait,
talk to
okay,
them.
thank you.
Yeah, so Tim Olson, DPW Director, with Sean here, trying to move forward on some of the Patton Park Master Plan that we had, I think, last year, almost a year and a half ago, probably was put together. So Phase 1A is the kind of beginning of the large plan. So what you have in front of you is some conceptual costs. We haven't done, obviously, any design efforts or anything to this point, but we have some conceptual costs as well as a plan on the second page. The first part is, one of the biggest priorities was the drainage in the park near the playground area. That is kind of your first bold total. That includes, obviously, getting a contractor in here to do some drainage work and some earthwork, test pits and things like that to see what type of subgrade and percolation rates and things, what type of soil we're dealing with, I guess, easy way to put it. And then obviously doing the physical repair to that area to get that area to drain much better than it is today. The second piece, the paving, furnishing, site improvements, there's a listing there. Main piece of this is some new pathways through the park. We are concentrating more on the tennis courts, basketball courts, playground area, that side of the park, and not necessarily the pond side. So that gives us some, if you look at the second page, the area that is kind of black hashed, or dash lines, I guess, is the pathways that is included in Phase 1A. The red hash is the drainage area. So that's what those two areas are, and how they relate to the costs. Realizing that that is quite an expensive piece there, there may be ways to I guess, minimize or limit the pathways through the park. Maybe there's some higher priority paths to connect maybe one parking lot to the other parking lot, maybe a way to connect to the gazebo, way to connect to the gravel road on the other side near the park playground, or near the ball fields. So there's ways to maybe look at that plan and consolidate it down, or I guess limit or decrease it down to a budget level that is appropriate for the money that we have. Also part of that is looking at some park signage. That was a big priority as well, as that came out of that plan. And then some plantings, loam seed, things like that around anything disturbed. We usually restore it before we leave. So that is kind of a loaded cost. That includes the engineering behind it and design, as well as any type of overhead profit with the contractor coming in with a bid number. Prevailing wages are included, so that's why it seems probably a little bit high, but being a public project, we have to include wages. So the one thing that I wanted to point out, it does include like concrete pads and benches, things like that. That could possibly be done at a later time. There is a series of plantings on the bottom on Phase 2 that we think, Sean and I thought maybe if we set the guide, kind of the ground rules, if you want to call it that, we create the infrastructure, then maybe we can come back at a later time. Maybe that will provide people some more visual of maybe either donating a bench or donating a tree, but giving them a sense of where that infrastructure would be placed and where it should be placed. So we think the best bet is to move forward with just creating that first kind of phase of the park, bringing connection points, connection together with points that are currently there. And then seeing obviously some improvements with the drainage, prolonging that area, maybe even being able to do something more in that area that gets flooded. So more to come, but just basically creating that first kind of infrastructure improvement as that plan stated.
I want to know about these $10,000 signs.
That's exactly what I was just nudging.
Which-
you.
How,
That's-
how do we get benches that are $2,300 and signs that are
that's
$3,300?
just- I
So,
I find a hard time, I have a hard
So
time
again,
with that.
I think what.
This is
what-
great work. I should have started there. Thank you.
I think what happens is you go through, and you kind of build a budget based on what is the max you would expect. None of this would be purchased without a procurement process that we would expect, and we can also adjust, based on what you're willing to offer for the project, and going through the procurement process, they could pare things down.
Yeah, and we can, once we develop the plan, these are allowances. So
Yep.
they're just basically saying, hey, we have maybe budget 10,000 at the max.
For
but-
4 signs generally.
Right, and if you only need a few signs, then you're obviously not using that allowance. So, and that will all come when the design plans get a little bit further along of what we are actually looking for signage and what makes sense there and what sits size appropriate and things like that.
So what's currently available for the board to consider is about $235,249 of ARPA funds that are not yet encumbered. There is potential down the road before, probably through the summer, we'll determine if some of the money that's previously been encumbered, if there's leftover, that you'd have to then reallocate. But at this juncture, what is available for ARPA funds that hasn't been encumbered and obligated to this point is about $235,250.
And so I'm clear, are these dollars already encumbered in that 250 and 150?
No.
or this is
No.
This
you-
is
you- you-
incremental.
This is incremental, and you've allocated $100,000, so, which hasn't been spent. So, if you wanted to do this and say, we need to get the number under a total of $335,000, well, you have 316, here's the max for phase A1, that would be under that total of 335. Yeah.
What was
Well,
the
it's two-
three, what was the
it's 235,
100,000?
but
Plus
the-
100.
Right.
Yeah,
Right. The
what
100
was that 100 gonna do?
It was, so if you recall, originally it was part of the capital improvement plan
Yep.
from the previous year. And we had always said that it was gonna come out of ARPA. We had just never taken the vote to do that. And
Okay.
the plan was to have Sean and Tim do what they've just done.
Got it,
And
okay.
So the total, right now, if you want to do all of Phase A1, the total estimate, and again, as you go through planning it and preparing it, the numbers will firm up. But as of right now, the estimate is 316,598, and with the 100 you've already given, you'd need another 216,598 to be able to do that whole plan.
And we have 235.
You have 235.
So Tim, regarding the site prep, miscellaneous geotechnical exploration, what exactly is that?
That's just looking at the current soils and what we have to, if we have to excavate them to get that area to drain better,
Okay, yeah, okay, so, right.
things like that. So
okay.
it's the, kind of the testing / design of what we actually, current conditions, existing conditions.
Okay, yeah, because I definitely would think that repairing all that flooding is top priority.
Yeah, that's where the 100,000
Yeah, I thought
kind of came, that was the
Yeah.
highest priority, was the
Yeah.
drainage issue there, for a variety of reasons. We also, the pond is significant, plays a significant role there with the drainage. So we want to make sure that the network of pipes and drainage pipes is flowing and moving the water appropriately. So that's part of that whole initial 100,000.
Okay. And then the trees, of course, that's
I know you were going to bring up the trees, so,
the trees.
yeah. Yep.
What about, did we already do the roof on the gazebo?
We did not.
We're just waiting for the lawsuit?
Phase two, though.
CPC.
Oh, CPC's gonna do it, okay.
That's something that that's part of this plan. I think that might have been in one of, it might even be that next phase. I have basically about probably 7-page summary, cost summary, that I'm sure it's in there. But something that we can probably even tackle sooner than that, if we go even through capital, something like that. It's not a large cost compared, to
Okay.
get that roof put together, but.
Well, I just wonder, like,
Well, and if the board wanted the town to attack the roof as part of
Yep.
some phase, we can play around with it.
yeah,
This is just coming out of what the Patton Park Improvement Plan had.
so that would be my next question, which is, there's sort of the tact of ruthless prioritization, right? Like, do the things that have to be done and get them done. Whereas I think this is sort of a blend of like nice to have and need to have.
I think that it's a small blend. I think the important part, as when we looked at this, and really this came out of the master plan, which we did surveys for and community input and things like that. We're really in this first phase to really identify things that would sort of, like Tim sort of said, to sort of set the groundwork of where the I guess the nice to haves could potentially
Yep.
go.
Yeah.
So for us to make the park accessible, for us to make the park not be underwater for, in the springtime, so we can then, in the future, look to do things like, maybe like memorialize a bench program,
Yep.
but now we have that kind of framework laid out to saying, all right, well, if we're going to do that program, these are where the benches can go. If we, a lot of folks want a lot of shade structures down there, or just shade places.
Yep.
All right, if we're going to do a shade place, we got to be able to make sure folks can get there first and get there in an accessible way. In those types of things, typically, the nice to haves or the things that are more usable than, I guess, just like the kind of like the site work, are things that are a little more easier to fundraise for, might be a little more easier to, I don't want to say naming rights, but just find more creative ways to fund than just, we need to fix the flooding, we need to set accessible pathways. So I think that was sort of the idea was, let's identify this, let's get this done, let's kind of lay it out. So when in 10 years from now, when someone wants to, put a bench at Patton Park, we can point and say, all right, that's fine, but it's got to go right here because we kind of have it all mapped out already.
So what is the ask for next steps? Is it to approve the funds for phase 1? Is that what we're doing tonight? Or is it to take this under advisement and come back? What do y'all?
Well, I have some other things to consider as
Oh,
well.
more.
So, yeah, this is,
One question before you get off this. I love it. I do, and I love the idea of tying it into benches and people being able to donate memorials and stuff. Are there any use differences with the athletic fields that are going to go in the high school with the large area that's the ball field, I guess?
So, it's tough to say. I think there'll be some, certainly. I think, we have to kind of wait to see how that plays out. I guess there's going to be one baseball diamond as part of the upper field at the high school. Our lights going to go up there? How long can the lights be on there? Can they play back-to-back games up there? Can they not? If they can, then it changes. This year, it's really something else. Between the high school and our Babe Ruth program, like our 13 to 18 high school teams, there's like 7 baseball teams that right now are using 2 diamonds. So, all those uses, I think in the long run, we'll try to figure out. But I think until it's done, it's still done. We're kind of living it. It's really tough to
And
tell.
I love
Yeah.
the use right downtown. People can come to games. I bring it up only because if we have all these pathways, is there ever a concern of a high fly ball hitting somebody?
Yeah, so I think we did look at the kind of the distances and things like that. We were originally looking at potentially doing a pathway that maybe went all the way around the pond for people to walk, or I don't know if we have enough room for that. But I think that too, remember, like we were kind of looking at it from a conceptual, like, a Google map type of look. But with this, in this first phase, is more of that real kind of design work, where we can really get down there and really, or the consultant or the architect can really get down there and we can really say like, all right, well, this is going to work, or, you know what, like, maybe from a Google map, it looked like this was gonna be okay, but once we're down here, there's no way that we can pull this off.
I love the idea of a path around the pond.
Hmm.
That would be
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
All right, so,
Of course, Tim.
so the second packet I'm going to give you is, fortunately, Patton Park's not my only project I'm working on. So what I was asked a few weeks ago is to provide some type of general estimates for the road projects that we have coming. I have a contract or a consultant. We did meet, we did do some field visits. They put together this conceptual estimate based on the listing that I gave them. Obviously, it's a lot. It's not something that we're gonna do year one. But it gives, I guess it just provides you maybe a good a magnitude of costs of what road projects do cost the town. And the money that we currently get from Chapter 90 is minimal compared to what we really need. Obviously, I'm very fortunate to get some, I guess, some money from town meeting as well to supplement the Chapter 90 or to add to it. But just one project alone is you know, just under $500,000. So these are projects that I'm working to. These are on the list, if you want to call it the short list. But these are projects that have been brought to me that the roads are degrading. They're getting unsafe. Sidewalks that are on the second page have been sidewalks that we've talked about for a while. That they're repairs to the sidewalks or they're in areas where there's new sidewalks. So it just provides you, I guess, a sense of the amount of money that we potentially would need to get these projects done. These aren't bid numbers, obviously, so there is a competitive bid market that may bring these numbers down. We are seeing better numbers coming in. But it just gives an idea, and that's what it is. And more so wanted to say, I believe there was $150,000 that was from ARPA money, 150, right? 250. 250. 250, I'm sorry, 250.
This year from capital improvement, so you get a total $500,000 to spend.
500, right. And so if there was, what I was basically saying is that if there is some ARPA money left over, where do we want to best use that ARPA money? Do we want to put it into roads and sidewalks? Do we want to put it into Patton Park? Do we want to do a little bit of both? And that's more just for your information at this time. And for a decision, I guess, if you guys are ready to make the decision. I just wanting to know how much money I do have to spend, so.
I think it's a lot of information for you. I know that we just were able to get these to you tonight, so if the board wanted to wait and vote
Yep.
at a subsequent meeting, I think that would make sense. Plus, you give you the opportunity to get input from the other two members who were unable to be here.
Is it, or is it possible to prioritize some of this list?
Oh, yeah,
4.2
yeah,
million overall, I mean.
yeah.
So if
Yeah,
there was
there's-
an affordability thing, we would attack it this way.
Yeah, there's different ways to definitely prioritize lists. I mean, obviously, everybody's gonna have their number one project, or, you know, if you go off cost benefit, there is some of the major roads that need repairs that are the more highly traveled roads. There are sidewalks that are connecting points that need to be repaired, or there's sidewalks that need to be a brand-new sidewalk that's connecting communities or neighborhoods. So it's one of those, it's a hard thing to prioritize because something's gonna be left off the list,
Yeah, I
right?
mean,
So,
even if there were buckets, like, these are safety, boom, of the total, and these are, you know, connection, nice to have sidewalks
Right.
that aren't safety, but, you know, somehow that, where we could help
Yep.
allocate money towards a program that might take a couple years.
Yep.
Great.
I can tell you that the roads on this list are pretty much, those roads that are listed, I did take a few off, those are more safety
Okay.
and drainage issues.
So-
Sidewalks, the higher priorities would probably be Essex Street and Highland and Asbury. But there are a list of like Lois area, Postgate, those are all neighborhoods that have a lot of people in there, that the sidewalks are in just tough shape. They're inaccessible in some areas, covered over in some areas, broken up, and a hazard. So it's just, we have work to do.
You do, man. You're doing a great job. So right now, towards this, Joe, did I hear you say we have 500,000 allocated?
You have $500,000 allocated right now.
So we have 100,000 already allocated here. We have
500,000.
500,000 already allocated, and then we have this 235. And the question is, does the 235 go here,
Go there.
or does it disappear somewhere in this 4 million?
Yeah, so, I mean,
You
again.
can't do it all, right? I mean,
You
now we're talking
You
about,
We
can't
do
do it all
it-
for,
I'll-
you
we'll
can't do
name
it all
the
for
road after you.
235.
This is a naming opportunity.
can I put a bench on it?
Yeah, you can put a bench on it if you want to pay for it.
I mean, the roads and sidewalks, it's not a year one plan, you know, it's not,
Right.
it's
That's
a,
what I'm thinking.
it's a 5-year plan.
Have
It's
you
a
laid
whatever.
that out with that
Yeah,
Capcom?
I've had, well, I have laid out as for funding, I have an idea. It just depends on how much extra I do get. I mean, that could be,
How
if I
much do you
don't get
want?
it,
How much are you asking for?
What could you
4.2.
spend?
Don't ask that
if-
question.
If you had it.
Don't ask the question, he'll ask for all of it.
Yeah.
I'm of two minds.
Two personalities?
Okay, that as well. 2 is generously low. If extra time will create extra thoughtfulness, I'm happy to wait. If extra time will not create extra thoughtfulness, I'm certain we could probably make a rough decision, but I defer to you two.
In my head, just out of the gate, unless we're ready to speak.
I've just had an opportunity to look at these things now, and I need to conceptualize, for instance, the sidewalks. I'm trying to think of where they are, and I just need a little more time.
Okay.
Yeah, I would prefer to just look at it a little bit more.
So let's just for the next meeting, everybody put it in your calendar.
Yeah, I mean, I
Put
would
your 30
absolutely say
minutes.
the drainage at Patton is something we should be
Yeah.
working
Yeah.
towards, and moving on that. And then really it's from whether it's paths in Patton and other things, or safety is my big go-to. Like if you came back and said, here's the bucket left, Joe, and your team told you these are the priorities on safety,
Yeah.
that's probably gonna, you know,
Because we could cover the drainage with the 100,000 you already
Right.
have.
but you're not holding up on that, right? 'Cause
no,
you're-
that's what I was gonna say, is none of your decisions, take your time, none of it's really holding me up, because even the road and sidewalks, I have a consultant, I have the money set aside to continue designing these, because I think that's just a good idea to do as well. Just get them designed, get them ready to go, and then we can pull them off the plate if
Yeah.
we don't have the funding for them. But they're already designed, we've already got to that point, just to set the table up. Same with the park.
Tim, tell me what the acronym SAY is indicative of?
That's just an estimate.
Okay.
It's kind of like say this price, say about this price.
Yeah,
Oh.
okay, that's what I thought, but I didn't
Great.
want to presume.
What is HMA?
Hot mix asphalt.
Okay. And which ones of these sidewalks will be new sidewalks? Can you?
The new sidewalks are the
Essex and
Essex
Asbury.
Street from school to Forest.
Essex Street from school.
So connecting, we have a sidewalk all the way to Essex Street from on School Street. So this would connect School Street to Forest and that whole neighborhood, to bring that neighborhood safely across Essex Street and then down School Street, down towards Bridge. And just connecting that neighborhood together. The other new one is out on Asbury. So it's from the outer Asbury intersection out towards Sharon Road, that direction.
Which one is that? Is
It's
there?
the third, I believe that one's the fourth one
Okay.
down.
Asbury South to Asbury North.
Yeah, that is the two Asburys, connecting the two Asburys together.
Oh, yes.
And then the Asbury Street North is the one that goes out towards Patton residence, that direction. So that's, those,
The Highland is the one that people,
so Highland is existing, and that is, we do get
a lot of
some
comments.
concerns.
Yeah, okay.
That one actually goes from 50 Highland, which is down closer to, I think, Linden Street area, all the way to Asbury. So that's the whole Highland stretch. So that's quite a bit of,
South part of Highland, going, from Wenham towards Asbury Street.
What's the one that splits going to Appleton Farms that we always get the emails about, where
Yeah.
there isn't a sidewalk?
Appleton Farm.
Where Asbury and Highland split?
Remember that we were doing a speed study there, and one way, may
Isn't that
potential, we had a lot of.
Highland?
Goodhue? Is that
It's
where-
like right by the gas
Yeah,
station.
it's-
Is that
That's
right there?
Highland.
Oh, that's Highland. That goes out
That-
towards Pingree?
Is that on, yeah, is that on here?
Just that intersection.
Got it.
There isn't any roadway to make a sidewalk up there, is there? On, down Highland towards?
There's not much there. I think power poles are in the way. I think most of that area through there, but, a lot of these also, if you're gonna do new sidewalk, we look at drainage issues. Cause right now they could be, country drainage, and then if you put a sidewalk in, you have to put a curb in. You're now directing that flow somewhere else, so you have to make sure you have adequate size, infrastructure, and location for the drainage to.
Okay, so there are
to
lots
migrate.
of reasons why that wouldn't be ideal to put a sidewalk on Highland all the way down to Pingree, okay. Okay.
All right, well, we can
You table.
table this. Would somebody like to say the word? Table, you just say this word right here.
Do we table?
Yeah, I would
like
love-
to table this
yeah.
and maybe have, if, I think, because I want you, I love that you have a roadmap. I know, pun intended on the roads here, but, I just would like, I know we got 235K, I think there's a timeline on that, I'm not sure, Joe, but
December?
like.
It has to be
Phil came
obligated,
back
it
and
has to
said-
be obligated by December of this year.
Okay,
It
so
doesn't have
like
to be
if
spent by this year, but it has
you
to be
would
obligated.
say, As, you know, the
Yep.
leaders in your groups, here's how we want to allocate it. and
Yep, I mean, we
table
have time. I think if we were gonna do any road project, it would be in the fall and then finish it up in the spring.
Just
So
to
we
be
could-
clear, obligated means, you guys vote it, and then we have a contract in place that says
Okay.
where it's going. So if I don't have a contract by December 31st,
So you got to bid it
we'll
out.
lose the money. So we needed a decision in time to be able to obligate.
We can also structure our bid to have a base bid for money that we currently have, and then add like an alternate if more money becomes available. So we get a contractor on, something more comes available, we can then add it to it if we want to do it that way.
Thank
I mean,
you.
Yeah, I just wouldn't want to stand in the way. I mean, I would tell you that we've got 235 to play with. If you got, I would even be fine saying, based on your decisions on where to go within these lists, you guys can decide the order and timing, but.
Yeah, I think part of our question is, do you want us to spend it in Patton Park or on sidewalks? Or do you want us to split it, or, and, that really is, I know the previous board had talked about, we spent a lot of money on, of ARPA money on infrastructure. A big portion of it went to the secondary treatment plant out at the water treatment facility. And there was some desire to do something that the town residents could feel good about and see. So we were asking you, where do you think they'll see it more, sidewalks or Patton Park? Your choice.
Depends on whether you use sidewalks a lot.
Yeah.
Right, so, I mean,
Okay.
again,
Drainage and trees, if it was a perfect world.
We're gonna get you a shirt. It's gonna say drainage and
Drainage and
trees.
trees.
Drainage and trees, please.
What if it waters the trees?
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
all right, thanks.
All right, thanks,
Sure, Sean.
Sean.
Sure.
Thank you, Sean. Thanks, Tim.
Do we
We
have?
have a member of the public asking a
Oh.
question.
Absolutely, come on up.
Member of the public.
Hi, Steve Ozahowski, 156 Willow Street. My sidewalks are great.
Love that for you.
I'm on the Recreation Committee, and one of my fellow committee members asked me to come by tonight to say something. He is a grandfather and he is disabled. It's not cause and effect. He has attempted to go to see his grandchildren play Little League at Patton Park, and he is unable to park close enough to be able to get out of his vehicle to get to the fields because there is no handicap spaces near the restroom. There are some by the tennis courts, but it's too far away for him. So I'm just bringing this up because he was planning to come here tonight, but he couldn't make it. He's not feeling well. So I just want to bring that to the attention of any renovations that are done. I mean, the rec board completely supports the Patton Park project, but we really need to do something about handicap parking near the restrooms.
Sure.
Please.
Just real quick, I just wanted to let, several phases of that project. One of those phases was paving that roadway and establishing parking.
The one that goes back to
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
Meyer.
One with the potholes in it.
It's not,
Yeah.
it's just part of the project. It's not part of this phase that I put forward, but it's something that Sean and I and the consultants did discuss as part of that plan. The tricky thing is now is it's a dirt road. So for us to make it ADA accessible or handicap parking spaces or something like that, it's nearly impossible to do that. It's not really, you're putting a sign up. That's basically what you're doing. But it's really not made for that as a gravel road. Part of that plan was to pave it, looking at, and maybe, that's something we talk about, but if that's more of a priority, you know, it's in the plan, so.
One of the meetings I was at, the issue of paving came up as a real concern, because having lived here for 36 years and used those fields, I can tell you that the last thing we need is that thing to be paved so that people can go in their SUVs 40 miles an hour.
That's right, right. We were
Well,
just talking about that
I would think
side
that-
conversation.
We
Yeah.
can, that's for
You-
another day.
well,
I
you
don't
can-
wanna
we can
belabor
handle
it.
You can
it.
pave it, put
Is
speed bumps in.
there some way to
so-
get up a temporary sign now near the men's room?
Yeah.
$1,000.
Just,
Um,
yeah, a thing, there used to be some right out here.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk, I mean, I'll talk with the police as well, I mean, obviously they're enforcing, but,
Like a temporary sign, I think that's a great idea. I do see lots of grandparents down there.
yeah, unless,
Who
would it
have a
be,
hard time.
does he drive, or
Yeah,
is it?
he drives,
Because I was talking about possibly having like a drop-off,
Okay.
like, you pull in, you drop them off,
Yeah.
then you go park, and dedicating an area for that,
Patton Airport.
something like.
I think that's a conversation, that doesn't need the select board's input, we can actually have the conversation offline.
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing the perspective, though. I think that's
Yeah.
valuable.
I think the pathways aid in that mobility of the park too, down the road, so that's important.
All right, thank you. Did our citizen arrive?
Is Eric Memo available online? He's not in the, I know he's not in the room. Eric, you here? I do not see him on the Zoom.
Okay, would somebody like to table the discussion?
Yes, yes, well, I request that we table the discussion on the citizen bus shelter for tonight, and we'll pick it up next time.
Thank you. The next item is really just a topic of conversation. I assume that y'all have been engaged in at least a portion of the number of conversations and emails that I have about the 13340B, and in light of the ZBA's decision to invoke safe harbor, we just wanted to give ourselves time to sort of talk through, what this sort of means, and what the next steps are. As I've said to folks that have reached out to me or called or emailed, the developer does have, at this point, it's been a week, so they have another week to appeal.
Yeah.
Is that to appeal the safe harbor invocation? So they hired outside counsel. Dan Hill was there representing the decision to recommend invoking safe harbor. There was some disagreement between Dan and our counsel as to whether that would hold in appeal. I think our counsel had advised us that they did not think that it would hold in appeal. I think Dan feels strongly that it will hold. The good news is it's not our decision. That will come back. I think they have 30 days after the appeal to come back with a decision about whether safe harbor holds.
I believe it was related to the safe harbor that they ultimately decided upon was
Related application.
related to the litigation that's
Yeah, so
going on right now.
we invoked safe harbor based on related application, which was one of the two ways we could do it.
Exactly.
The disagreement was whether payment in lieu would be upheld as a sufficient within an application that included affordable housing. Our counsel had felt as though payment in lieu would be sufficient for them to deny the invocation of safe harbor. I think the attorney that was brought as outside counsel, felt like it would not be lost in appeal, that we would gain safe harbor. And again, we just have to wait and see.
Right.
The other part is that the ZBA, while they did invoke safe harbor, they did not vote to deny the permit. So the public hearing continues. And so there's sort of parallel things happening, right? Like they will continue the hearing to either approve or deny the permit while also invoking safe harbor at the same time.
Exactly. If the applicant decides
To go forward.
Right.
So there's a lot of sort of gray area there that, again, not necessarily related to us. I think what has come up many times is the question of whether or not we want to continue to work through some form of MOU in the event that the application is approved. In the spirit of working on behalf of the town, I will say that I have received zero support vocally for continuing the conversations around MOU. We continue to get encouragement from legal counsel to go down this path, to have something in writing. That said, I mean, the time for it has sort of passed. We're now sort of past the process. No decision was the decision ultimately for the select board. And I think that in light of the conversations that we saw today, where perception becomes reality, and if we do this, it looks like we're supporting the project versus not. If we want to just back away from any continued negotiations via MOU, that can be what we decide to do, but I give the conversation over to y'all.
Well, the MOU, the purpose of that MOU was to endorse the 40B, correct?
Yes and no. It was to get something in writing that
Right.
if it went forward, we had conditions that lived outside the permitting process. The problem is the optics of it was that we were endorsing the project. And truthfully, from a legal perspective, we were just trying to protect a set of interests because they could not be protected as a part of the 40B permitting process. And the developer had sort of said that he was sort of open to us continuing that conversation as the rest of these things went on. I think that I've had very reasonable and thoughtful conversations with people about that, and there still is not support for us to engage in anything that appears friendly.
Well, I would absolutely agree with that. I think the overarching principle to that is looking at the work that the planning board did over a 2-year period, an extremely thorough and thoughtful review about this project. There were hundreds of people on the Chabaco Woods Coalition who were adamantly against that and had a multitude of experts speaking for them. They themselves talked about the degradation of the land, of their neighborhood, of the noise. And so I strongly would disagree with doing an MOU, knowing all of the time, energy, and effort and passion that these residents contributed to preserving that area. And not just because they like it, but because there are real environmental risks as well. If we compare Bridge Street to Chabaco, right? Bridge Street just took off the side of the hill, and there is a mudslide waiting to happen. It is appalling. And if this were to happen on the 133 Essex Street, it would be catastrophic. And nobody knows the opponents of this program were denied the opportunity to have a hydrogeologist. So somebody who would give us more of a probability. And we don't have that information, and I do not believe, based upon what the planning board discovered throughout its analysis, I don't believe it would be prudent for us to say, yeah, well, we think the project, based on what this developer has said he's going to do for us, would be good for our town. Because if you look at the gives that he was promising, there were 49 waivers that he was expecting, including a performance bond. That doesn't seem like a reasonable thing. We give away everything for minutia in return. We give away our most pristine forest land, our water supply, and the needs and passions of people who live there. So I absolutely would not endorse an MOU as a friendly 40B for this project under any circumstances. I think it's antithetical to a town standing together in the best interests of its residents. My comments.
No, I appreciate, I absolutely appreciate that. And again, I hope that in making this decision, and again, there are folks who've stayed here all night, our legal counsel, and again, Dan Hill has brought another perspective. I've listened to him speak. I appreciate it. Our legal counsel does not feel as confidently as Dan that we will have a favorable outcome, both in the the invocation of safe harbor, but also in if we deny the project, that it will come back to us. I think the Pembroke example was that there's 250 standard considerations, and the Pembroke denial, they took away everything from the town when it was approved on appeal, including third-party review. All of that went away. And so we have continued to sort of get counsel that our council does not think that defending the original appeal is as cut and dry as it's sort of been positioned, and they do not know that there's a way for us a path forward for us if the 40B is denied by the ZBA and goes to appeals court. Now, we can sort of wait and see in each of these stages. We're waiting for the safe harbor. We're waiting for the ZBA. And so again, the MOU was simply to say, ignoring that it's called friendly, do we want to put something in writing that says if this goes forward, these things are preserved? Because I think we've sort of heard they will not be on the table otherwise. The trails may not be public access at that point. They will be considered restricted private property and no one will have access to them. So I hear and agree with your sentiments, and before we put it completely to bed, I just want to make sure that we're okay with that by doing so, we are optimistically assuming that this goes the way that we want. Because if it doesn't, we no longer have anything. You can come up to the mic.
Thank you for letting me speak and for hearing our concerns. Heather Ensworth, 4 Villa Road. I just wanted to say, with all due respect to our town attorney, this is Stan Hill's area of expertise. He specializes in the laws around 40B. So I think we can take that input seriously as a town. And part of his statement around that is by standing firm and letting the safe harbor play out, we're actually, as a town, in the driver's seat. Mm-hmm. As soon as you step out of that position and start the negotiations with the developer's in the driver's seat. And those of us who have been involved in this now for how many years? Don't have a lot of trust in this developer in following through with his commitments. So I think you could make some negotiations with him, which are minimal. Thank you, Rosie, for what you said, compared to what we lose, and he can rescind them at any point. And I do think, as the person said earlier, perceptions matter. And it would really look not only to the residents, but I think to the ZBA, that the select board is in some way approving this to let it go forward. And we have grave concerns about the impact of this for the town, not only in terms of the environmental damage. Water is a crucial issue. Why would we contaminate our only remaining water supply? But also, as John McGrath said, I think the financial issues for the town are huge, because whatever gain we would get out of this development, we lose by the liability of what happens if that watershed is damaged that impacts Essex and Manchester as well as Hamilton. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Heather, also for your continued conversation.
Yeah, I think one more comment about the appeals that are in the courts, both for the stormwater management and for the application itself. I mean, the courts looked at this and have been loath to make a decision. So I don't know if we can say that, well, the courts are perhaps not looking upon this favorably. I think, importantly, you need to stand your ground for what you believe in. And I have followed this project all along, listening to the planning board hearings and attending many of them. I think it's important to stand your ground as a town, standing together for what the town believes is the right thing. And yes, we are losing out on some tax money, but do you know what you lose is so much more than that. And so money, the bottom line is not just money. It's our quality of life, it's our water supply, it's what makes all the things desirable in our town. So And in my other life, I'm a nurse, but I'm also an attorney. I understand everything is a risk-benefit. But if you don't stand on what you believe is the right thing for your town, looking at the whole picture, then you have nothing.
Yeah, and so, I agree with almost everything you said. I don't look at this as, trying to get a tax dollar and gaining tax revenue there. I look at the approach that Caroline was describing as trying to mitigate something that could blow up and be a lot worse. I think that's where the MOU is coming from. Now, with saying all of that, I don't think the MOU is worth it. To be honest with you, I don't feel like our back is up against the wall. I also feel like we've got two public boards, that are telling us otherwise right now and follow the path with the ZBA that it's on now. As for the appeal, I mean, I'm curious where we are at with that. Does that mean that picks up? What has the town spent on it? What is the town committing to spending and continuing on it? I'd like to kind of understand, since I wasn't on the board when that was going on, what have we committed to and what might that look like if this takes the appeal path? Is that gonna keep going? I just wanna know.
Yeah, it's on a stay right now, so.
It's on a stay, right, but if this
Right.
doesn't go through, that stay goes away, right, and it's still an option, then does that mean a lot more legal expense?
If he drops the 40B and goes back to the
Right.
appeal, then that could be picked up again.
Right, so then does the town support that financially?
Well, we voted to defend the planning board decision.
So that's a vote.
So
that
the
was done.
current appeal on the books is authorized, the funding is, I authorize the funding. We agreed to defend that decision. The question, I think the next conversation will come if the developer appeals safe harbor. We could still not do anything until the ZBA makes a decision about whether or not to approve the permit. If they deny the permit, and I'm saying, we're putting all the options out on the table. The question will then be, were there legal and lawful grounds for denial of the permit? And if we believe that there were, then we would be authorizing the town to defend another lawsuit.
Or not.
Or not. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I just wanna know, I wanna get caught up
Yeah.
on what's been spent, what that cost would look like through that.
And right now, I think that, this is more of an FYI conversation, because until we know if the safe harbor is going to be, if there's gonna be appeal and/or the hearing that goes forward with the ZBA, the ZBA, unfortunately, and this has come up many times, does not have the process that the planning board had. For 40B, it's a very short list of, does it do X, Y, Z? And if the answer is yes, that's the grounds for approval or denial. And so if they choose to deny the permit, Rosie, to your point, to sort of just make a stand and say, we're denying it, the developer, it would then go to HAC, and that's our concern, is that the HAC has been ruthless in their return on these denials.
But there's also case law where these denials have been upheld based on, I can think of 2 cases off the top of my head where these have been upheld based on environmental, specifically water issues.
Yep.
So, yes, it is a risk, but you have to do what you think is
Yeah,
right.
and it's a risk that honestly, we collectively can decide to take. I think right now, I am waiting to find out what's going on with the challenging of the safe harbor and what's gonna happen there.
2 weeks, right? He has 15 days?
He has 2 weeks,
Yeah,
and then they
15
say that
days.
typically a decision is returned within 30 days.
Yep.
So we should know within the next, 6 weeks from last week, but,
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing for us to vote on here today, but I think at this point, we'll sort of stay the conversation around an MOU. I've certainly heard enough, I don't mean I've heard enough, but I've gotten a quantity of feedback about, the sort of benign nature of what's in there that I don't think anybody is supporting that. Please, come up to the mic.
Very quick comment. I'm Ken Whitaker, president of Safe Tobacco Woods and Watershed. I would advise you to very, very closely take a look at that agreement. It is very one-sided to the developer. There's lots of escape clauses in it. It really ties your hands. There are a number of different ways that they can walk out of the agreement, even if they are allowed the permit. So I would just advise, there's some really very one-sided, and what you're getting is very, very limited. So,
Agreed.
yeah.
Yep. All right,
I mean,
so,
are these the same discussions we started out today with 3A, right, MBTA? Is that gonna, or is that a similar path for us where we're squeezing our ability to influence properties in the town?
well, I think, I had this conversation with Spitty the other day. I was like, ultimately what everybody's asking from all sides is defend a lawsuit against the state. And I'm like, oh God, okay, that's a lot of lawsuits against the state for various things. But, again,
But is it similar? I'm asking, maybe Joe, so with the 3A, does like planning board comes out, we have our form base, I don't know how much authority that gives us to rule anything just because we say it, or is it the state just right away, I don't care what your form base says, and it's ZBA again? Is it ZBA again through that process? I
No,
think
The state, no.
That's the planning board.
It's planning board will have to have hearings on 3A
On the
zoning.
zoning.
On the zoning, and it's
Yeah.
form-based code, and the state has shown a willingness to work with form-based code as it pertains to 3A compliance. So we're not, we're trying to do something a little different than most communities have, but the state has shown a willingness to listen to that. We'll see where we get on it. It's a process.
I just wonder how much, I want someone to convince me we have teeth at that point.
Well,
just
wait and
because we
see
have
what
full
happens
days.
with Milton, and then that will give us
Yeah.
a little bit of guidance.
they vote on Thursday? When
No,
they-
Milton is already,
They
is
voted
being
today.
sued.
Oh, sued, yeah, okay.
Yes.
Yeah, so Milton's being
Yes.
sued by the Attorney General, and in Rockport, a group of citizens
Yeah.
has basically sued the state, saying that the law was unconstitutional.
Which is
It's-
essentially what's happening with the 40B stuff. The challenges are challenging the right of 40B to bypass local environmental bylaws and regulations. So it's not town versus developer, it's town versus state 40B law. So that's ultimately what we would be taking on if they deny the appeal.
President on Zoom that has a question.
Okay, let's hear it. We,
You're gonna need to
yeah,
unmute.
unmute. Oh, you did and then you didn't.
There we go.
There we go.
There you are.
There we go. Oh, okay. Hi, Karen Angeli, 4 Postgate Road. I don't know if this is the right place to ask this, but we're talking about a bunch of different housing projects. And I'm wondering if we're having a coordinated effort to actually get ahead of 40B more than the 3A. But we did mention something about Gordon as well. But are we working across the town to address it proactively?
Yeah, it's a great question. I don't know if you were here for the public comment part.
On 3A?
No, on 3A. I think, the
Yeah.
short answer is yes. There's always an effort to try to be mindful of all of these things. What you have to be careful of, as you heard earlier, is that it starts to sound like a conspiracy when you try to be thoughtful about it. Joe walked this developer through the Gordon Conwell site when he was.
We had them walk through.
We had them walk Gordon Conwell when this development was being proposed. That was not the site that the developer wanted. It wasn't for lack of saying we have space here that you could use, or what about over here. It's this property owner with this plot of land with this developer that wanted to go there. And I think, we are behind on our housing plan for affordable, and I think that has put us in sort of an awkward, if not precarious position, whereby the perfect storm is now happening. And that's not because we're not thinking about this all the time. It's that it's incredibly difficult to coordinate these types of things in the way that we imagine, right? People will say, why can't this development go on the Winthrop site? Well, in order for it to go on the Winthrop site, you have to consolidate the schools to Cutler, and people don't want to do a consolidated school at Cutler. Why can't it go on Gordon? Well, it wasn't asked to go on Gordon, and then Gordon wanted to do a certain type of housing. And so
Right.
it is, the conversations are ongoing. It's that there is a lot of vocal opposition everywhere we turn.
Right. It's like death by 1,000 cuts.
Yes.
Well, yeah, and each of the projects is different. Each of the proposals is different. They all come from outside. Towns don't generally, municipalities our size just don't have the experience.
The resources.
They don't have
Yeah.
the resources and the expertise to be able to, initiate a development proposal. So we have to respond to what comes to us. So Gordon Conwell says they want to sell their student housing. Well, we have to follow a certain process to help them do that. A developer comes in and says they want to do, it's been alluded to, originally they wanted to do a market rate project out at 133 Essex. It went through that process, it failed. Now they've come back with a 40B project. That has a different process it has to follow. The 3A zoning is a zoning change. It's,
Right.
and that's the other thing we need to keep focused on. It is not like, oh, you have to do this and establish 731 units. You have to create zoning that would allow that if the right developers came in. And that would assume that they could, you know, do septic for 731 units. That would assume that they could acquire enough land and within the 49 acres to do all. So there's a lot of different things that would have to happen in order for 3A to even be implemented in a town like Hamilton. One of our big complaints before the law passed was, you're asking us to adopt something that would probably
Right.
never actually happen, because there's no actual way, without the state coming in and building sewer, because developers don't build sewers, and there's not enough places to do septic. So
Right.
it becomes, you know, you're asking us to adopt zoning that doesn't make any sense on its face. That was my big
Right.
pushback to the state, and they didn't listen to us. They just said that we want you to do it anyway.
Well, you know, I will add something that, that .93 acres at 63 Willow Street, it is amazing that 18 apartment units and 2,500 square feet of commercial space fit on .93 of an acre. So, and I don't think anybody would have believed that that would have happened, because all we heard was, oh, that was a fishbowl and it'll never go. Well, there it is. And so I think the reality is, if we zone it, somebody said, they will build. And so I think we should not think about a wing and a prayer with this. We need to have a concrete plan as a town and look at it's a definite possibility. And that's not to say that 700 apartments would be in one spot, but developers are pretty creative.
And that's why we hired the consultants,
Yep.
because they can actually help us envision what we want the town to look like. And really, it's a town center plan with a form-based zoning code. And
So is it within his scope right now to look at the other two properties that we talked about and think strategically of a whole town plan, not just that? Or is he really just tasked with the 3A
But
specific?
He's tasked with specifically the area, you know, that would be impacted by potentially 3A. It was, the RFQ was for a town center plan with form-based code. It was not for 3A specific, but understanding that 3A is in play with the state, we want them to understand that and help us understand it. But it was not
Right.
looking at other sites
We
away
also
from the town
can't,
center.
we can't plan for land we don't own.
Right.
And that's been a tough I mean, we don't own the Gordon Conwell site.
Right.
And so, you know, it's.
We don't own 133 Essex.
We don't own 133 Essex. You know, these are
Right.
not ours.
Right.
And I think that's also, you know, one sort of parallel finding. I think if you go back and look at the school building plan at the very, very beginning, a lot of that was like, you know, feasibility on site. Where could we put a new school? And I remember being part of the conversation of like, there's so many places you could put schools, go look. Well, it turns out there's just not that many places you could put a school. When you look at, you know, there's a lot of wetlands, there's a lot of, you know, drainage issues and blasting, it's sort of everywhere. And it quickly took a list of 25 down to, you know, what we currently have. And what I will say about the Hamilton, the current Winthrop site, for better or for worse, is it's the land we own.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so whatever conversations we have about it, and I know that they can seem, you know, insensitive or developer friendly or any of those things, and I recognize that narrative, but it happens to be the land that we own. And so when we have a lot of these conversations about opportunities and the fact that these things are connected, you know, if we don't want 40B over here, we have to find another place to put 40B. And if the only land we own is this thing that currently has a lease that might be consolidated or might not, it's sort of, you know, the house of cards is tough. But that said, and I'll say it a million times, if anybody has thoughtful answers, please email them to me. I would love to hear them.
Well, if there's, you know, here I said I didn't even go down today, but if there's a working group that's a proactive working group, not a bunch of people screaming at each other, and did a workshop or something, that would be nice, because there's not, it seems, you know, I'm preaching to the choir, but very black and white. And there's things we need to do and things we should do as citizens of the North Shore. So, so I would be up for helping. I don't know who I'll reach out to, but.
Yeah.
Karen, if you could reach out to me, send me an email. My email address is on the town website. You can click on me and send me an email, how to reach you, and we can have a conversation. We are working to put together a group that will work with the consultants, and then also the consultants will be doing very public stuff, surveys, public meetings as well. So looking for
All right,
people
well,
serving those capacities.
I appreciate your hard work. Thank you very, very, very much.
Absolutely, thank you. I think if you come
You
up to
made me laugh.
Yeah,
Yes.
Good, thank you. And while you're walking up, I think too, if we do get safe harbor.
Come on.
Well, if you, the problem is the folks at home can't hear you in the Zoom.
My voice carries well. Brad Hilt, I don't live in Hamilton, I live in Essex, but I have a very deep interest in tobacco woods because I've been traveling its trails and its off trails on foot for almost 30 years. So I believe very strongly in the sanctity of the woods, particularly these woods, and especially with land that is undeserving to be developed. Now, there is land that is deserving to be developed, and I understand that. But just a thought comes to mind. There's a lot of the obstacles that...
Yeah, I'm sorry, sir, first of all, typically, public comment is for residents of the town of Hamilton. You are not one, and the gentleman just said that they can't hear you because you're not at the microphone, so.
My suggestion might be a little naive. It's Brad Hilt. But give it some thought. This town is loaded with some very successful world-class attorneys. To me, because the legal system at large is making it increasingly difficult to make progress on critically important issues. So why not do a little research, do some reach out to some of these crackerjack attorneys. They may not have a moment of time to spare, but their firms might have some resources that you could tap into as a gesture of goodwill, being a resident of the town of Hamilton. But there's a lot of legal resources, I think, that are available and don't necessarily have to command top dollar.
So with that, I'd say there are state bidding laws. We would not be allowed to allow somebody to work on this pro bono. We would have to go through a process and find attorneys. We don't have to go through a competitive process for procurement, but for attorneys, we have to hire them. We can't allow people to work for us for free.
Hiring suggests the exchange of the delivery of some compensation.
Yep.
That can be creative too.
We can get a task force together, loaded with some skilled people, I think is what he's suggesting, which we do have a lot of very smart folks that we could leverage for all of this, but, you know, we keep shifting 40B, 3A, and, you know, they threw 15 units, it doesn't really get us back towards our master plan. It's not, I don't look at that as a major win for affordable housing or tobacco. I do look at, you know, a dorm for X could be, and if we get safe harbor, then maybe we can sit back and look at our options and try to,
Agreed. All right, in the interest of my deep hunger, I'm going to move us on from this, but I think for folks listening about, you know, where the select board is going from here, we will await decision from the developer on the safe harbor, and then I think we'll continue to have this conversation at select board meetings moving forward. But at this time, there will be probably no further discussion of an MOU, so.
so we got 2 weeks, or a week and 30 days,
Yep.
basically.
Yep.
At most, okay.
All right. I'm going to go out of order. I'm going to ask if it's okay to table the regional school.
Yes.
Do we need to have this conversation tonight?
No.
I move that we table.
Okay. It's been,
Is that okay?
Yep.
Okay. So the agenda setting schedule, again, with the folks not here. Bye, y'all. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for coming out.
Have a good night.
thank you.
Hi, John.
Bye. Bye. Soon. Soon. The agenda setting schedule is here, but a portion of the folks who would be impacted by that schedule are not here. So I also think that this is not,
Just for your education, it's just a rotating schedule built off of the last one we had. It's just
It's the same cadence, right?
Same cadence.
Yeah.
Everybody goes once through the term, and then you start over again. We began with the chair as the.
oh, do I not have to come to these?
You are at all of them because you.
Oh, that's what I thought. Okay. I thought you were saying it started with
No,
me.
It starts with the vice chair.
Got it.
excuse me, and then goes to clerk, and then the other two members, and then goes back to the vice chair and goes through again.
I need to put this on my calendar.
It's
And the
just
new kid on the block.
Yeah, so basically for setting agendas, like, every other week, Joe, Caroline, and then we rotate, every fifth time you're doing it.
Yeah,
A third person goes in and you set the agenda like we did for this.
And the date that's set there as the date that we would do it is always in flux because things come up and maybe you're not available on the Tuesday before, so you do it on the Wednesday or the Monday before. And that's always a conversation that starts on the Monday before when I send out a text to the chair and whoever's up and say, do you guys still want to do this on Tuesday? What time? And then we go.
Yep. So just for clarifying, the actual date that you would be on the hook for scheduling is the date on the right, the far right.
Correct. And again, it's flexible within allowing us to post the agenda.
Yeah, do we need to vote on that, really?
No, you don't need to vote on it. I have it as a possibility for you. I put vote when there may be a vote, and I don't want people to say that we didn't know.
Well, I would say, could we just, I would entertain a motion
To accept.
to continue the rotating schedule.
There you
Yep, I move that we continue a rotating schedule to set select board agendas.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Well done. Okay, the last bit is the
Horse trading.
horse trading. The horse trading on the liaisons. I have already told folks that aren't here that they don't get a say in the things that I assign them or that they told me, but I will, just for the two of y'all.
Mine is blank, is that correct?
Yeah, sorry, I have it, I have it here.
Oh, I did.
Yeah, no, I have yours. So for you, Rosie, I have Conservation Commission, Council on Aging, Environmental Impact Committee, Public Library Trustees, and I have Open Space Committee, but it says it's actually defunct. Is the Open Space
It's
Committee?
not defunct, it's just not currently active. They haven't met in a while. But
Okay.
Should it come back into being used, you'd want somebody that would liaise it.
Okay.
Conservation Commission, COA, EIC, and the Library Trustees.
Yes.
Thoughts, comments?
How does that feel?
I was hoping to maybe do either the planning board or the ZBA as well. These are great. These are all mostly, they're environmental concerns, which the Conservation Commission, the EIC, great. COAs, my love. Library trustees, I'm happy to do.
I can give you ZBA.
I would love the ZBA.
Okay, how about,
That's a big one right now, so.
yeah, that's a big one for you.
It'd be a great learning experience as well, so that would be super.
Do you want to give up one that you have, or do you want to keep?
I'm happy to keep them unless you,
No, that's fine. Somebody was gonna get 6
I mean,
and,
if it seems unweighted, once we get it out, we
that's
reserve
fine.
the right to adjust.
Okay, great,
But some
thank
will require more time than others, I think.
Oh.
ZBA will, though.
yeah.
Yeah.
Bill, I have you on Capcom,
Yep,
CPC,
yep,
HDC,
yep.
School Committee,
Ooh, it's a big one. I like it, though.
Sheesh.
After tonight, I want it.
and Master Plan.
Master plans.
Yeah, which is wrapping up, but I think I'm
Done,
gonna
yeah.
follow it through the planning board and stuff.
Oh,
right?
yeah,
Is
that
that the
makes
intent, or do
sense.
do we need the master plan?
Well, I was gonna say, yeah, just whenever
Yeah,
whenever
so
that
that should be a
sunsets,
light one.
you sort of go,
I'll
so,
sunset it.
yeah, okay. And then I'm going to keep Board of Health. I'm gonna keep FinCom. I'm gonna keep Affordable Housing Trust. I took Housing Authority and Cultural Council. And then,
A good mix.
yeah, some of those I already had and some were, it was really distributing Sean. Bill, I have on, North Shore, or Essex Tech,
Oh, it's fun.
Hamilton Historical Society, the Community Access Board, the Planning Board, he would like to maintain that, and the Patent Homestead.
Oh, those are good.
But I'm happy to horse trade Patent Homestead if somebody wants to. And then Tom is Board of Assessors, Chabaco Woods Land Management Committee, Historic District Commission, Human Rights Commission, and the Rec Board. Tom's a little light because he has 3 children.
That's fun, the rec board.
Yeah.
So does that, if I do the school committee, does that put me on that building committee too? Is that a process, or is that already winding down?
Tom's on that right now.
So
It's
does
not
he
winding
stay on?
down.
I mean-
There's gonna be a lot to do on it. But that was, that's gonna go through a review process with the school committee. And I'm sure everybody heard that the MSBA did not require that committee to be approved by the school committee, but the school committee has an internal rule that did. So that's gonna be going back through the school committee process. So if you have interest in that, Bill,
Well, I
and
mean,
wanna
he's
manage it.
got continuity and history, so I have no problem not.
But
I
Tom
don't
may
know.
also be looking for a way out too, so you may want to talk to him and see, and then let me know, we can have Eric, let Eric know what you all want to do.
I think that's good, you're a good communicator, and you'll
Yeah.
help to keep that conversation very cordial.
I mean, there might be good connection with the two, but honestly, I do think it's important. He's got such history. I don't know what he wants. Maybe we should, I'll circle with him if you want.
Okay.
I guess.
He was very open to you taking it.
He was very
Yes.
open. So was that the intent?
I also thought because the HDC is involved in
Yeah, I was thinking.
some of the stuff happening, I just think it might be good to have oversight
Yeah.
of all of that in one place.
Yeah.
Who's the HDC?
Hamilton Development.
Oh,
I've been doing that.
oh, that's great, yeah.
So I thought school committee and HDC maybe, given
Yeah,
the,
there is definitely a connection there, so. I don't mind.
okay.
To be busy, William.
But is that, are you feeling overwhelmed?
No, because I think the master steering is gonna really fall off my plate. The capital committee it can get busy during a window. But honestly, I think I've transitioned that spreadsheet I created, and they may be
If you weren't so
self-sufficient.
competent, this wouldn't be a problem.
What's that?
If you weren't so competent, this wouldn't be a problem.
Please, you must be hungry. You're trying to rush me.
And we don't have to vote on this.
Yeah, no,
It's more sit with it. I'll send an updated list to the folks that weren't here, and then,
But I'd want to know when the next stuff is. I don't know if I can just show up. I do want to get up to speed on everything on it, so
Okay.
it probably makes sense.
all right. Any new business?
3A.
I think I think certainly the conversations that came up today about the, updating folks on the this, that, and the other, but I know that there was an event held at the Legion last week that was very well attended. I'm grateful that community members are getting out there and speaking about it, but I think we need to either be in those conversations or part of those conversations. And maybe it's a matter of having council come and talk about the law.
I think we're planning to do that.
Okay.
We're planning to, as I said, we are having a planning session for a public community forum about 3A, about the school feasibility, about, kind of everything that we're facing. We're gonna try to focus that agenda a little bit. It may wind up needing to be more than one meeting. Several years ago, we did one about water planning, and it was well attended and well received, and kind of quelled people's concerns that we weren't paying attention and didn't know what we were doing. So we'll try to do that with some of these other items. So.
Do you know, I think it's a really good idea to have community forums about the 3A. I also think that it's important that we present multi opinions, right? I know we're the select board and we're here for the town, but I think the town can have it can have more than one opinion of saying, okay, here's a lot, here's what we have to comply with. I think we need to think about, so what does it mean if we comply? What are the financials? I think John McGrath came to that meeting that was held last week, and he talked about the risk-benefit reward cost analysis, and I think that's important. So if we present something to the community, we should present the whole picture.
Mm-hmm.
We're working on it.
Yeah, and I think one of the valuable things that's come from the conversations over the last week is because of the way the process works, it doesn't immediately occur to us to just say no, right? And I think what the public is expecting is a spectrum whereby one of the responses is absolutely not. We will not do this. And what does that entail? And then there's all the way over to absolutely yes. What does that entail? And that's the, I think the scare tactic that we've sort of seen. And then there's the middle. Now, I recognize that the middle, there's a sentiment that the state will not negotiate, but I think we're seeing through form-based coding, we're seeing through some of the challenges that they might. And so I think one of the things we have to talk about is how we present out those options. And no can be an option, right? As long as
Right.
we know what no means.
Right, and also point out the financial cost to the town if we decide to go along with 731 apartments. I mean, it's not just 731 people, it's 3 times that. And what does that mean for our resources, and what are the costs to the town? But what are the risks to the town if we don't comply? So I think we should present a full picture. I think sometimes I get a little cranky thinking that we're going to be just the goody two-shoes who are going to say what we have to do.
Yeah, no, I mean,
So
fair.
that would be my request for any forum that we put on.
All right. I would love to entertain the final
Move
motion.
that we adjourn.
And I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hi, everybody.
Good night, everyone. Thanks for coming.
Before you all leave,
My house today said.